But I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know whether rockets or whatever, but it could be fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1,
for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is Tuesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. You know what those things are. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. Just making sure I pressed all the buttons appropriately. Sometimes I have an issue with that. All right, so as I said, that's what we do. That's what we talk about on this show. All that stuff, right? Because I think there's a lot of things that are sort of science based, and well, people don't talk about this stuff, and I think they should, because well, you know how can we actually judge ourselves in terms of cosmic anything if we can't actually just expand our minds a little bit and think about things sort of outside the box? And that's really the way I've always seen this, and that's what this show's really about. So we do this live on Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. That's part of the initial blurb that I screwed up there because everything's breaking already. But hey, yeah, sometimes live shows everything breaks, and what can you do? What can you do is just keep on trucking, is what I always say. But okay, so that's what's up. That's what this show's about. It's about those things and more, because it's just really too much to kind of boil down to just like it would be a huge essay just to explain exactly what this show's about. But in the end, it's just about speculating. It's about dreaming. It's about looking up instead of looking down. It's about wondering what the universe is really like outside of this human shell, outside of the meat suit. And I think it's worth talking about. I think it's worth considering, and that's what we do here. So we do it live, like I always say, is the whole thing here is not, I have no inside sources. I'm not a scientist or a rocket scientist or a biologist or any of this other stuff, right? I'm just a regular dude, okay? But the thing is, with that, there's some value in that because, right, like a lot of times these academics just get themselves wrapped in circles and, and talk nonsense. It's like you can think too much about something, about one thing, that you end up sort of just tying yourself in knots over, right? Which doesn't make any damn sense at all to me. Like, you got to be able to back up and look at it and go, Does this make sense, right? Because talking yourself in circles is just a pain in the butt, and you confuse yourself and everybody else, right? So, okay, so what we're going to do tonight is much like every night, okay? Like I always say, I do not have any sort of inside knowledge or inside sources, but the secret weapon of troubled minds is you. And what that means is we do this live to include you. This show's been live since we started, and back then no one was listening. Now people are listening, and it's amazing, so thank you for that. But in the old days, we were live, and we took phone calls even though nobody was listening. And we're still taking phone calls because the secret weapon of troubled minds has become you. This is what the idea always was about creating this radio show, is let's get together and let's talk about amazing things and see what, just regular people think about it. And so that's my long-winded way of saying, give me a call. With all the stuff tonight that we're going to be talking about, it's this one, I'm going to need you to take a healthy shot of maybe juice tonight. But that's a good thing, I think. But so basically, give me a call, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. We also have a Discord running because we have people listening all over the world. So if you don't like that 702 area code, which is Las Vegas, of course, you can just use the Discord, which is a chat client, a voice client, which they just started censorship a little bit on Discord, and it's really upset me because for a long time, it was one of those places we could get together and not have to worry about, fact checkers or technocrats or that Facebook garbage where they're like, oh, you're in Facebook jail, congratulations. No, none of that. Well, they're starting to do some of that stuff, and that's it's unfortunate. But so if we have to switch from that, I'll let you know. But we're going to use it for the time being, and I don't know. And we're not even doing anything nefarious in there, by the way. It's just we want to be able to discuss things that, get fact-checked, the arbiters of truth out there. Anyway, I digress. So, okay. So that's what, please join the Discord at troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. It'll give you an invite. It's directly free. It's give you a direct invite. It's completely free is what I meant to say. And is just hop in there and come say hi. You can be on the show that way as well. Okay. So what did I got that. I got this. I'm a little bit out of source tonight. I'm sorry. Just because, this idea is still on my mind as it's baking in. I got to be able to not just conceptualize it in my brain. I have to be able to explain it with my mouth, and sometimes it's harder than it seems. But okay, so I'm a little bit out of sorts, but I'll get there. Okay, but so that's the first couple things. If you're international, don't like the 702 area code, use the Discord. Also join the Discord at fringe.fm because we're streaming on Fringe, and fringe.fm/chat will give you a direct invite to the Fringe chat room for Discord. I'm watching all the chat rooms and all the places, of course. And what that means is we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And, of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. And that's what we're doing tonight, right? As usual, doing it live, talking about crazy stuff. All right, so let's begin with the crazy stuff. This one's going to be a mouthful tonight, all right? This one is going to be a mouthful. All right, let's begin. Let us begin, shall we? This is where I started tonight. Before we get to the plants, before we get to consciousness and some of these other things, this is where I began. thenextweb.com. And again, as always, my links are in the description, and you could always find that stuff in the podcast feed as well if you want to go check out these articles that I'm referencing here, because I like to source my things. I like to source at least where the ideas came from and show you that there is some form of actual basis here, and it's not just me, hip shooting and literally making stuff up. So there you go. All right, so this is where we begin, right here. thenextweb.com. And this is pretty wild, right? Scientists think quantum tunneling in space led to life on Earth. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right, so now this one's, again, a little bit of a mouthful. I'm going to have to get into this, but let me preface it with this real quick. Before we go down this rabbit hole, I want to point out that this is not a new idea in the sense of, well, we've talked about panspermia before, right? In the idea that life on Earth has come from other places in the cosmos, okay? So that's the most basic thing. And some say it was brought on comets or meteors or maybe just floating in space and, all these other things, right? But the floating in space part is the part that becomes a little bit weird because you're like, wait, how does organic material survive in space? How does it travel long distances? How does it get from galaxy to galaxy? Things like this, or from actual, the solar system to solar system. I mean, those are vast distances, and organic material supposedly isn't supposed to be able to survive the void, the vacuum of space, right? So, all right, so that's where we begin. But this It's calling it this is the coolest origin story ever, straight from the article here. Now, let me read just a little bit of this, and you'll see where we're headed. And as usual, we're headed to a wild place tonight. Here it is. A team of scientists recently published a paper indicating that life on Earth is the result of what can only accurately be described as cosmic teleportation. Cosmic teleportation. Humankind has long sought to penetrate the mystery of how life came to exist on our planet. But what if the only reason we're here right now is because the universe cheats? The universe cheats, right? If we trace the origin of life back to the dawn of biology on Earth, we find ourselves rewinding to the primordial soup from which our ancestors arose. All right. However, the basic building blocks of life had to be present before anything could ooze its way out of the soup and into the future. So the question is, how did amino acids end up on Earth? And well, that is the question tonight. That's as this begins, right? So I got a little bit more of a longer and winding narrative, but here you go. Let's according to the research team, which included scientists from the Max Planck Institute and Friedrich Schiller University, Jena, our origin story actually began in space. In space, yep. Per the team's research paper. Here we prove experimentally that the condensation of carbon atoms on the surface of cold solid particles, or cosmic dust, leads to the formation of isomeric polyglycine monomers, right? Follow me? You guys following me yet? All right. In other words, the researchers experimentally formed complex amino acids in a space-like environment. There we go. All right. So what that means is this is significant because it's long been believed that life was only able to form on Earth because of its proximity to the sun. All right. So this new research doesn't necessarily change that. It's clear that life thrives on our planet due to its unique amenities. But if the basic building blocks of life, amino acids, can form into complex chains in the void of space, it's possible the universe is practically teeming with the potential for life. And we talk about this all the time, right? We talk about how life in the universe, life in the galaxy, it's going to be in ways we can't even imagine, right? We have to really stretch our imagination to get us there, okay? And there we go. So there we go. Let's do that. And so let me ramble a little bit, and we'll go back to this spot in just a sec. But okay, so the thing is this, right? If we're saying that they were actually able to, through a laboratory sort of experimental basis here, actually create the basic building blocks of life, amino acids, in what amounts to the vacuum of space. That means then, of course, that it could be, you know how they always say we're just dust from comet dust, or right? We're all space dust, or so I can't remember the exact term. It'll come to me in a sec. Like I said, I'm out of sorts. Yeah, you gotta give me a sec here. Give me a sec. I'm just kidding. All right. So all right. So with that said, all right. So if they're able to take this idea of these amino acids as building blocks of life and recreate them in a vacuum, sort of in a space-like simulation, right? Then that means that this cosmic dust could be everywhere. Stardust. There. Thank you, Mama Bug. Stardust. That's what I was looking for. The stream sounds and looks crystal clear. Thank you. All right. So stardust. That's what I was looking for, right? So we're all made of stardust, right? And so I think, thank you, Mama Bug, saving me there. I knew it was a term on the tip of my tongue. Cosmic dust, stardust. Okay, but anyway, right? So here we go. This continues. There's more. This gets a little wild, right? However, getting those building blocks to form in cold temperatures is no easy feat. First, you have to push the boundaries of chemistry by designing amino acids that can form in a waterless paradigm. Of course, that would be the vacuum of space. Then you have to leave the laws of physics behind to overcome what's essentially an insurmountable barrier. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, the universe says, hold my beer, because here we go. So the gist of the problem is that molecules have greater thermal energy at higher temperatures. That's why combustion engines work. Here on Earth, it's warm enough for atoms to use thermal energy to overcome the energy barriers to their formation into amino acids. But out there in space, it's cold and molecules are lazy. All right. So they don't have enough energy to climb over the energy barrier. In order to overcome this, the researchers simply relied on the universe's natural penchant for cheating. And here's where we get into this idea of quantum tunneling. Listen to this. Instead of giving the atoms more energy, the universe teleports them past the barrier and pretends like it never happened. This is a wacky quantum process called tunneling. All right, quantum tunneling. Can you believe this? All right, here we go. As Chemistry World's Katrina Kramer explains, tunneling is actually a terrible word to use because the term conjures up images of a particle boring its way through a wall. But there is no hole, tunnel, or any other type of opening involved. Instead, we need to use the same currency the field of quantum mechanics deals in: probability. A particle can be described as an oscillating wave, its amplitude representing the probability of finding it in a certain place. When encountering a barrier, this wave doesn't end abruptly. Instead, it continues inside and on the far side of the barrier, albeit with smaller amplitude. All right. So now this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this cosmic dust. All right, in the void of space with the basic building blocks of life, amino acids. Okay, and they're saying that experimentally they've been able to verify this can be true. Okay, per the team's paper, as demonstrated here, a portion of these organics could be in the form of peptides. At later stages, such dust becomes the building blocks of comets or meteorites. The formed organics could therefore have been delivered to the early Earth during the period of heavy bombardment. And that's of course the idea of panspermia and all the rest of that, right? But, well, if we're talking about this idea of quantum tunneling and cosmic dust, and maybe this settling down into Earth through, well, some other means, which are not exactly just the idea of panspermia, but maybe the universe giving it a little bit of a helping hand, all right? And so, of course, as you know, so the question tonight, to the questions, shall we? So, all right, so now we're not talking in terms of, maybe Oumuamua bringing space dust from Alpha Centauri, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about this idea that this cosmic dust could reside in space as a natural thing, and, well, the universe giving it a little shortcut to maybe pop it into place. And again, quantum tunneling is what it's called. Like I said, it's difficult to explain. I'll get into quantum tunneling as we get a little bit later tonight as well, because it is it's hard. It's one of those things where, meaning that in the quantum space, which is super tiny, right? That's the whole idea of quantum mechanics. Things just don't work as you would expect them to work. And we've talked about particle wave duality, the quantum immortality, the quantum entanglement. There's so many things that really sort of don't track to the macro world that we live in, and yet we're made of all these tiny things that are doing all these like incredible things all the time. Double slit experiment, exactly, all that stuff, right? But the problem here is that if this is the case, and they're saying, okay, in space you have the cosmic dust just as a basis of being out there, these peptides, amino acids, and able to populate everything. That means life is everywhere, right? Okay, so the question is this, right? So if there's cosmic dust and life is everywhere, what do you think is the very first form of life that would show up on a planet, right? Meaning we've got, billions of years of evolution. Let's say this cosmic dust came to Earth before there was any life here whatsoever. What were the first things to actually create, right? It started with the tiny stuff, and it started the cellular division and all this craziness, right? And then in the water. But then what did it do? It turned into algae and like this plant-like photosynthesis type material and all the rest of this. And then, of course, once these little critters that were being born, or whatever they were able to eat the plants and the algae and all the rest of this that was actually growing in these spaces, then you had the basis for a food chain, an ecosystem, and the rest of this. So the question is this, all right? So if we've got cosmic dust sort of floating through just wherever, all right, and it can land on planets that are devoid of life, just willy-nilly, wherever, whenever. It didn't have to be some heavy bombardment period or any rest of that. It could have been, but it doesn't have to be, right? Because again, back to this article, they've said that they've now determined that it didn't have to be that way. Okay, so anyway, so the question is, if the very first form of life came here, what was it? What does it become, right? It doesn't become people. it becomes these tiny microorganisms, right? And then, of course, like I said, you get the algae, you get like this plant-like life, right? So, all right? So then follow me down this rabbit hole just a little bit further where we're at time-wise. Okay, so let me explain. Too much, let me sum up. So meaning this, all right? So if we're talking about consciousness as sort of a universal consciousness of intelligence and just us, all right? We weren't born here. Consciousness is a very heavy thing in and of itself, just that conversation. But think about it in terms of this. This is what I mean. If the very first thing that needs to develop, the very first thing to be the basis of an ecosystem is the plant life, right? You don't get lizards and all the rest of this. You get plants first. You get algae in the water. You get things like this, right? You get that type of stuff happening. Well, then the next step is, of course, things that eat this algae. So it stands to reason that the basic building blocks of life actually are in the form of plants, right? Bernays Saw says the fungi. We'll get to the fungi later. And so as a result, and this is what I'm thinking about tonight, and this is, again, like I said, I need you guys to take a healthy shot of maybe juice with me tonight, because this is definitely one of those healthy maybes, big heavy maybes. But the thing is this. All right. So if we talk about maybe consciousness being spread around, we've talked about, Cthulhu spreading octopus seeds throughout the universe, right? In the form of a Sagittarius A or something, like a supermassive black hole in the arms of the galaxy being tentacles and this type of thing, right? But what if it's not? What if the actual, consciousness of the galaxy and the universe at large isn't animals like us, people? It's this basis for life, which here on Earth, of course, is plants, is photosynthesis, is exactly like you see when you look around the Earth right now. So I don't know. So, okay, so the few questions, like I said, I'm a little jumbled in my head trying to get this right for myself, but okay. So the question tonight is this. If we have this idea of this space dust, this cosmic space dust that's floating around with the building blocks of life, all right, and then it comes here, and let's say Earth, just for example, because that's the one we know, but you can actually extrapolate this to any alien planet anywhere else. But what happens when the building blocks of life come here and then start creating life? And the very first thing that happens isn't lizards crawling out of the water, fish with legs, or no, it's plants, it's algae, it's actually this first photosynthesis. All right, but the craziest part becomes, we'll get to some of this later on tonight as well, but you don't need a sun like ours to have photosynthesis. You could have different color stars and all kinds of things, which I've got some science on that as well. But okay, so APOC's got it right, the base intelligence. So do you think that the base intelligence, that's the question, thank you, that's the term I was looking for. Thanks for the help in the chat. Shout out to APOC out there. Look, the base intelligence of the planet, do you think that it could be plant life? And if that's the case, and if out there everywhere, the base intelligence is plants in and of itself as the beginning of this life cycle, well, it brings into question the consciousness of plants. And is all of this just a giant accident, or is this part of the plan? And which would mean the original inhabitants of this earth is not the fish coming out of the water with the legs that turns into the this and that, and then finally us. No, it's the plant life that was here first before anything could actually be created in terms of life itself, life as we know it. So I don't know. So the question tonight is this. What about this idea of this base intelligence, thank you again to APOC, and this the consciousness of plants? If this arrived first as sort of the building block, the very basis of life through this cosmic dust, do you think it's possible that somehow, some way, when they talk about the Gaia hypothesis and the fact that the Earth may be alive, it's actually all on the basis and the backbone of the plants? You tell me. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is alien plants. We're going to get there. Don't worry. There's tons of stuff. And I've got some wild ideas, because I've always got some wild ideas. Love to hear your thoughts on this. The basic building blocks of life, plants. Do you think plants can be conscious? And if so, is that what the Gaia hypothesis is? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More cosmic quantum tunneling and the consciousness of plants when we return. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're discussing this idea. It begins with quantum tunneling cosmic dust, and that the idea of panspermia is not like we think. If cosmic dust is prevalent all over the galaxy and as a result all over the universe, then life should be everywhere. And so I was thinking in terms of, well, this idea of the very first amino acids that end up on Earth, what do they make? First, the first complex microorganisms, and then it becomes algae, it becomes plants, it becomes water, right? Water-based things, and then of course it climbs out of the water and all the rest of this, and this long cycle of on and on and on and on and on, right? But before we have the first actual mammals or reptiles or any of the rest of that stuff going on Earth itself, we have to have a nice solid plant base, photosynthesis, okay? So then the question tonight is this. With this idea of this cosmic dust and the very first thing, that base intelligence, as APOC said there in the chat, thanks APOC for the bailout, that base intelligence that first came here to really create this, everything that we know, was maybe an intelligence in and of itself. So what do you think about this idea, right? The idea that plants themselves are consciousness, and they brought it here, and we are just part of that consciousness, that base level of intelligence, and we're sort of just knuckleheads that don't even realize it. So that's the question tonight. So number one, the questions are like this. Do you think that's possible? Number one, that plants are actually conscious, all right? And then, of course, that would mean the entire Earth is covered in plants, right? Because that would be pretty much everything. You've ever seen a rainforest, even in pictures? That's pretty amazing, isn't it? All right, so that's number one. Number two, what about if this happened on an alien planet with like a different type of sun, a different color sun, and photosynthesis may or may not work there? Well, I've got some science to suggest it would. So we're going to get into that tonight. So the question becomes, we're talking about alien plants, all right? We're talking about this idea of this cosmic dust settling all over the galaxy and all over the universe that creates this maybe base for life. And the basis for life is, of course, the plants, the fungus, these forests, all these things, right? The algae, the coral in the ocean, all this stuff. Of course, coral wouldn't be plants, but you get my idea. Everything that starts in water sort of starts to creep up on the land. So the question becomes, all right, so back to the questions, all right? What do you think? Do you think it is possible that there is this consciousness with plants and we're just sort of riding on its coattails, if you know what I mean? We say that the most complex, thing in the whole solar system is the human brain. What if we're missing the boat entirely and it's not? And we've talked about these ecosystems with the plant life itself communicating underneath like a forest in the depths of the earth itself, sort of communicating through these maybe fungal giant colonies, right? I guess for lack of a better term here. And so, well, what would an alien ecosystem look like when you laid down what the plants actually were? And that's what's on my mind tonight. So that's the first thing, right? And here's what got me thinking in terms of this, because this is pretty wild. There's this article, and as you know me, I read all kinds of wacky stuff. And this is from the Art newspaper, of all places and all things. And this should actually straighten me out. Now look, I'm going to read just a blurb from this. Now they were talking about art on this thing. Again, it's from an art internet website thing, right? And so it's like, okay, why am I reading this? What is going on here? Well, there's a little blurb in this, and they say this: a ghost in the machine. A core element of the exhibition is the interface between humans and non-human entities. a cornerstone of Bruno Latour's 1980s theories of the actor network. Among the most interesting examples is the use of the unicellular slime mold, Physarum polycephalum, in experiments by the architectural practice Ecologic Studio, and in works by Jenna Sutela, the Finnish artist. All right, stick with me here. And Ecologic Studio are creating an osmosis between artificial intelligence and biology. Breyer says, by creating a new simulation program based on the slime mold's movement and then using AI to develop a new protocol of urbanism. And Zaitun says that Sutella, whose interest in interspecies communication, has also led to a work combining neural networks and Martian languages channeled by a 19th century medium, is using the same connection between the organic and the virtual to ask this question. What is the shaman? The oracle in the AI machine, which becomes a new type of tool to connect humans and non-humans, a new type of tool to create a random language that would be beyond human perception. And so the idea there is, right, if you notice, they said, what's the unicellular slime mold, all right, and creating an osmosis between artificial intelligence and biology. And then so that's what got my mind racing, and which I'm struggling to explain because it is pretty deep here. So the idea then that if we have, I don't know, the archons, some sort of universal consciousness, this type of thing, right, going on out there, wherever the heck this is actually going down, way out there, right? Let's say this is a thing. But then on top of that, if we have this consciousness of this cosmic dust floating through space that seems to be littering all over Earth and everywhere else for that matter with these plant-like base intelligence, shout out to APOC, what does an alien planet look like? And is this not an accident? Is this all just part of one huge plan? And I don't mean like in a cosmic plan, like, you know, like I don't know. I guess maybe I do. I don't even know what I mean, because this is such a big concept, and it's difficult for me to explain this because my brain's a mess right now. But okay, so I don't know. What do you think about the idea? Number one, of plants being conscious. We'll get to some stuff that actually sort of corroborates that idea. But then this idea that on top of that maybe the basis for life itself is this plant sort of consciousness that sort of blankets a planet with it's you know, it's what creates this ecosystem, this Gaia hypothesis sort of situation where the planet itself becomes a living, breathing organism, and it's because of the plant life that's buried deep into the roots of the planet itself. All right, so there's that. But then again, if plants are conscious and they're actually communicating with each other, what do you think they believe about us? There you go. Robert says, I just ate mushrooms at dinner. I'm an effing cannibal. Maybe. All right. So let's see. Where are we at? I think we're okay. Time-wise. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? First, as we begin, what do you think about this? Am I too far off the rails? I know I need a little bit of help tonight because, well, I am a little off the rails. But number one, the idea that plants are consciousness. All right. And it's not an accident. They came through this cosmic dust of this quantum tunneling, and it wasn't through this panspermia process of actual meteorites hitting the Earth that this cosmic dust could be everywhere, literally everywhere, through this idea of quantum tunneling in the vacuum of space, right? Again, very complicated. Don't ask me to explain too much because I'll get confused, because quantum mechanics is extremely maddening, let's say. But okay, so then, all right, let's go to some of these exhibits so I can explain myself, because here we go. Let's do this. This is from space.com, and this is actually published back in 2012. And alien plants may thrive on many wavelengths of light. And so here clearly we have photosynthesis. And so we have the sun feeds the water, the sun, it feeds these building blocks of life and turns them into this sort of this plant thing, this, right? Then oxygen and the whole, the CO2. Anyway, here we go. Let's read some of this. Everyone knows that we as humans literally owe the air we breathe to the greenery around us. As school children, we learned that plants, as well as algae and cyanobacteria, perform the all-important biological magic trick known as photosynthesis, which helps generate the atmospheric oxygen we take in with every breath. Plants algae and cyanobacteria alter our planet in a way that only life can. They use photosynthesis to completely change the composition of the Earth's atmosphere. Since the days when dust devils on Mars were suspected to be the seasonal variation of vegetation, photosynthesis has been considered a key to identifying the presence of life on other planets. Both atmospheric oxygen in the presence of liquid water and the reflectance spectrum of plant leaves produces signs of life dubbed biosignatures that can be seen from space. Therefore, photosynthetic biosignatures are a priority in the search for life on other planets. The big question is, will extrasolar photosynthesis use the same pigment as on Earth? And the crazy part about this is no. The answer is no. It doesn't have to. Here we go. The process, and here we go. Just real quick. Like I said, I'd rather hear your guys' thoughts on this. What about the idea that plants as consciousness, as not an accident, of the building basis for all life as we know it, and it's trying to communicate with us? We talk about communing with nature and things like that. Do you think this is too far of a stretch? Anyway, here we go. The process of photosynthesis is obviously more than simple magic. In basic terms, photosynthetic organisms take CO2, water, and light energy to produce sugars, the food that makes plants a staple of our diet. During this process, photosynthetic organisms use a photopigment called chlorophyll A, all right, to split molecules and produce oxygen. Until recently, scientists thought chlorophyll A was the only photopigment used in oxygenic photosynthesis. Chlorophyll uses photons and visible light at wavelengths of 400 to 700 nm, whatever that is. According to the NASA postdoc Steve Milk, lead author of the new study, quote, "It was assumed that during these stringent energy requirements for splitting water molecules, longer wavelengths of light could not be used for oxygenetic photosynthesis. That assumption changed in 1996 when Hideki Miyashita and colleagues discovered a cyanobacterium called, oh boy, Acaricloris. Anyway, this awesome thing uses chlorophyll D instead of the basis here of chlorophyll A to perform oxygenetic photosynthesis with photons from visible light through the wavelengths up to 740 in the infrared. All right. Now, this is, again, not like our sun. And so they're saying that, hold on, this could be the basis for all life everywhere. This photosynthesis, but not just here on Earth with these green hues. But what about, what would plants look like on, I don't know, like a white dwarf star, right? Like in something like this, when they get different sorts of wavelengths of these lights coming down from the sun and changing, I don't know, from green, we got green plants here, to who knows, is it red? Is it orange? Is it purple? We talked about a ways back with Jennifer on the show, is that idea of the death cult of Saturn and that cosmology of Saturn being the original sun, and there was something called the purple dawn with a different type of photosynthesis. And so in terms of that, right, you start to look at maybe these other planets, and if they are maybe this basic building block of life, this plant base, this plant consciousness, well, aliens, plants, you tell me. So you guys tell me, do you really believe that plants can be conscious? All right. So we got a couple things establishing the cosmic dust, throwing down the building blocks of life and turning this into, well, whatever this is. We're here on Earth, and we can quantify that very, very easily because we're here. We can go out and look at it. We can smell the flowers and the trees, and we can see these things. We can touch the moss on the ground, right? But in other places, we absolutely cannot. And so if we are all connected, as Jamie says there in the chat, is this a situation where maybe plants themselves are that base intelligence, but they're alien intelligence, right? Meaning that we are, again, back to that whole idea, the old idea of we're aliens ourselves, right? But if that's the case, and we are aliens ourselves, and this plant base of life is sort of this cosmic consciousness, what do you think it's trying to tell us? If it's trying to communicate with us, do you think it is? Again, here we go. So those are the questions. Do you think that this idea of plants being conscious is real? All right, number one. Number two, if they're conscious, do you think somehow, some way, they're aware of us and they're trying to communicate somehow and tell us something about ourselves, about the planet, about things we should know? And number three, well, Is this just too far off the rails, Mike? 702-957-1037. Like I said, I'm not sure. I kind of got a little bit deep into this, and I wasn't sure how to dig my way out. But with your help, I think we can dig our way out a little bit. 416 Cubes over on Rockfin says, mushrooms are great. Have to trick my kids to eat them. They have liked the taste till they find out, then they lose it. Right, exactly. Just scan the chat. What's up, Kelly? I see you out there. Yeah, so I don't know. Matt says, green moss on the left side of the tree, or is it brown moss on the right side? I have no idea. All right, so what do you think? Do you think this idea of maybe plants as the base intelligence or the original consciousness of not just Earth, not just this planet, but what about all the planets? And if this is the case, and we're talking about, again, the Gaia hypothesis as the Earth being a self-regulating organism, well, that would mean that the actual plant life is the basis for that. And if it's conscious, then we're talking about planets being alive, which we talked about not that long ago, right? On I think that was on the news show. But I don't know. Again, like, am I too far off the rails here? Love to hear your thoughts at 702-957-1037. Ronald, yep, not going to read the jokes, Ronald. You almost baited me into reading the jokes, so I'm not going to read the jokes. Okay, let's see. Jamie says, how do we find out if they are sending us a message or not? And that's the question, right? So number one, do you think they're trying to send us a message? Do you think they're conscious, and do you think they can actually send us a message? That's what I want to know. And how will we find out? How would we find out? Let's go to my good buddy Joe in Florida. What's up, my man? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you? Thanks for bailing me out. What's on your mind tonight, my man?
It's a bit of a tough subject, but a couple of things I could add. Curious enough, if you've ever watched Star Trek Discovery, they have, instead of using like your warp drive, they have something called they call it Black Alert, and they go through space instantaneously, like in Star Wars and Star Trek more or less, they warp space, but there's still time involved. But in Discovery, they have experiments, but basically the ship flies along what they call the Mycelium Network. And I believe they use the theory of panspermia and stardust, but basically flying on mushrooms is the way I take it as. In the TV show, they find a tardigrade, but it's like a giant-sized tardigrade. Big, it'll fit in a tiny room, and the tardigrade is able to navigate. And eventually they change that so that a human can navigate the ship across what they call the Mycelium Network. Listening to you talk, and I was doing some other things here, listening on and off, but, I mean, which came first, chicken or the egg? I would think that plant life, even the smallest fungus, that would be how it would start. I mean, if we were to seed Mars or seed planets, that's what we would do. We would probably seed them with some kind of plants first, just like the Chinese. And then they try to send a plant up to Mars, to the moon, and grow it on the moon. At one point in time, just recently, when they sent their rover up there, I would imagine that we would maybe start with plants, aside from being able to ship big machines that could convert oxygen or carbon dioxide or sulfur or whatever's in the air. I would think that the easiest thing to do would be plant life. Going back, though, I had to think to myself that maybe we evolved from machine life. I'm looking at science fiction, I'm looking at things, and that machines are limited in their scope, and to make the perfect machine, they made a flesh and blood creature, and whatever this matrix is, it has to be seeded. It has to be gambled with, and maybe on some planets that there's life, and it begins with plant life, and on some planets it fails, and it never evolves. If you're just looking at God or no God, but just the odds and the numbers.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that makes just as much sense as what you're kind of trying to get at.
No, it is a tough one.
Out here,
Yeah, it is a tough one, like you said. I'm glad you brought it up, the Mycelium Network. And that's what I was looking for. I was trying to find that, and like I said, I kind of ran out of time tonight because the concept was so large. But the concept is there, right? Meaning that we have these tiny organisms that are part of these networks that are literally underground, and they're miles big, like literally the size of a forest type thing. And they're kind of running the situation with everything. They're communicating to the trees and the plants and everything around it. And so, again, like it kind of brings it back to what you were just saying, is that maybe the plan is exactly that this cosmic dust is littered with this plant-like consciousness that evolves, and then what's it do? It ends up creating us. So is it somehow, some way where we're trying to communicate with it, or it's trying to communicate with us to tell us something, right? Like once we become smart enough and the basis of life itself is sort of murky, and why are we here? Well, something sent us here, right? Like, don't you think that there would be some reason for this, I guess? I don't know, man. I'm as confused as you are tonight, but I'm gonna get through it anyway.
Well, you know what just pops in my head, though, is the assumption that everybody, let's just take it to the time of giants, if giants ever existed, then the film, whatever you want to call them. But I know that we've all seen pictures of what they think is a plateau, but some people say that it's a petrified trunk of a giant tree, bigger than what even the biggest trees are now, maybe in the redwood forests. We've all seen maybe those pictures where they say that could be a giant that's petrified that fell on the ground. But I know that I've seen pictures of what looks like plateaus. And if you look at them long enough, you say, well, that could be a giant tree that was cut off at the trunk. I don't know if you've seen those pictures. I don't know if they're out west somewhere, not whether it's true or not, petrified, but it makes you go, the time before time. Plant life has always been here. We know the planet has warmed and cooled. Now, are they trying to say something to us? I don't know. I kind of equate it to like the bass static on your radio. I kind of would equate it to the sound of space. If space has a sound, some kind of a bass wavelength. I mean, if it propagates all of the universe, it would have to have some kind of frequency or something. I guess it would vibrate at something.
Yeah, something,
Can we
right?
communicate with it?
I feel like you should be doing this show tonight. You were spot on, my man. You were spot on. No, and I think that's it, right? So if this idea of this, so first, do you think plants are conscious? How about that?
Conscious is a tough word for me. As maybe following the program, maybe the programming. I don't know that it's conscious. I think we're the conscious ones, like in the Matrix. The guy Smith says we're the virus. I think everything else out there is following the program. I believe that we were probably put here as part of the game, if that makes sense. Everything else is static. Everything else is just following the program. Maybe not animals so much, but maybe animals are. Maybe they have a limited consciousness. The planet, maybe it is conscious, but what's your definition of conscious? You can have a paraplegic, it could be like a paraplegic. They could see and hear and everything else, but they can't really react. It makes me think about Metallica video where the guy had no arms and no legs or whatever in the bed. Forgive me. A terrible analogy, but what level of consciousness? Do they? Maybe. I mean, is the planet reacting to what we're doing to it? Or are we doing to it first? And it's reacting when the planet has reacted. Are we putting greenhouse gases and therefore this is happening? Are we cutting too many trees down and throwing the balance out?
That's a good question. Joe, as you know, we're out of time. I appreciate you bailing me out, kind of snapping things back into place here. Always a pleasure, my friend, Joe in Florida. Thanks for saving my ass, bro. Thanks for the phone call.
It's a good question. It's a good topic. Maybe I'll call you after 12 or later or whatever if I'm up. Good night, guys.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks very much. Good friend of mine, Joe in Florida. Thanks for the phone call. The question tonight is this, right? If this cosmic dust brought the basis of life here as plants, do you think that somehow, some way, cosmically or otherwise, that the base consciousness of really this earth and ourselves is the plants and the network below our feet. And well, if that's the case, do you think it's actually trying to communicate with us somehow? Or am I just way too far off the rails for you tonight, and that's okay? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More cosmic quantum tunneling and the consciousness of plants and your calls when we return. Be right back. We are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing fantastic. And through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
Alright, so maybe
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories or ideas or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It's Tuesday night, one of the nights we get together. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific. And what is it we do? Well, we talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. And what are those things? Well, let me sum up. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. Now, tonight, we're discussing this idea of plants as consciousness. And not only that, do you think they came from this idea of cosmic dust, sort of not just panspermia in the idea of maybe rocks smashing into the earth and bringing, the basic building blocks of life? But what about cosmic dust that's all basically pervasive throughout the entire galaxy and universe at large, which of course would mean that life is everywhere. But if the basic building block of life ends up on Earth and makes us plants first, right, to kind of set the stage for the ecosystem to come, well, do you think that that basis of that basic building block from space is in some way somehow conscious? And if it is, if it's the base consciousness, and we're just sort of riding on its coattails here on Earth, well, is it trying to communicate with us? That's what's on my mind tonight. That's probably a better way to say it. Thanks again to Joe for bailing me out and snapping it too. So what we're doing tonight is that's the discussion. That's where we begin, and we're taking your phone calls. If you want to be part of this tonight, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show, and you can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. That's the official website, and Discord is a chat client. It's a voice client. It's totally free, and it's how we do part of the talk show. So just real quick, before we get to Daryl here, we got a couple things. We're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Also, please join the Fringe Discord at fringe.fm/chat. I'm watching all the chat in all the places. And also download the Fringe app. You can find that at, of course, iTunes or your Android app store, completely free. Easiest way to listen to Troubled Minds Monday through Thursday. Smash the play button at 7 p.m. Pacific. You'll get me. You'll get us, you'll get Troubled Minds. All right, so let's go to Daryl in New York. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. How are you tonight?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. Really interesting subject. I have a big, long list, but I'm not going to take a lot of time. Just want to promise you that. But I was inspired by your other callers and you, by what you were talking about. I was thinking, like, based on the other planets and other vibrations, maybe their whole plant life is so different that, maybe they're farming humans, and the plants are so intelligent and we didn't evolve that fast based on that frequency, I'm just saying, just one of those things. Maybe there's planets that are all black and white based on their frequencies and their color of the sun. And, it could be like so different than what we could even imagine. Life could be just a totally different thing. And maybe we will communicate, or maybe they have a universal translator that makes you actually communicate with the plants, some kind of alien language that you could say, hey, can you water me? Come on, I'm thirsty here.
Hey, I'm thirsty here. I'm thirsty. No, I love the idea. I love the idea. This is why we do it this way, because we're expanding each other's consciousness and just ideas, right, and themes. And I love the idea that maybe on an alien planet, that if the basis for life is that primal intelligence, and it's a plant life, like the actual, this Mycelium Network, that sort of thing, if it can actually communicate with itself, maybe there is a place out there where the plants are farming people or aliens or whatever. I love it. I love the idea. And you can't help but think of plants like the Venus flytrap and some of these carnivorous plants, right? They catch insects and eat them and digest them, right? I mean, that's pretty wild right there.
Practically human. I was going to mention, plants they all have defensive mechanisms. Some have berries that are so delicate and delicious, but they have these thorns. So you have to they built. How do they know to make thorns so they could get humans to keep off of them? Maybe or what else? Even things that you don't even think about, but people develop gout because of sometimes they can't eat things like tomatoes, because tomatoes, they don't get to you right away, but after many years of you eating tomatoes, the tomatoes finally give off that little acidic thing that makes you can't eat them anymore. And it's so subtle, they don't have any other defenses because they're soft and fleshy. There's melons that have a hard skin, so they can't get penetrated yet. They're delicious on the inside, but that hard skin is their defense mechanism. There's melons that even stink really bad, like the durian in Thailand. It stinks so bad. Maybe they want to ward off certain animals that smell like that. How do they have these crazy defense mechanisms? The thorns, poison ivy, pineapples with those, they have a kind of a thorny surface. Then I was thinking also plants depend on other things to grow, like corn, for example, the biggest GMO, plant that we probably, harvest. Well, not anymore. God only knows what we do now. But, they need humans to kind of make them keep growing, because they didn't have enough seed dispersal. And then plants are dependent on insects to pollinate. And why do plants look like sexual organs sometimes, the orchids and beautiful plants that look like female organs? And then also, what else? Oh, and the networks of trees. I was thinking of that too. I mean, maybe on other planets the trees walk, and maybe the trees walked on our planet. And what he was talking about, those giant trees, maybe our planet with a different atmosphere at a different time, everything was gigantic. And now it's we've been scaled down to our size now. But we had gigantic dinosaurs and gigantic humans and gigantic trees, that turned into mountains when they die, plateaus, like he was saying. So based on the atmosphere, the frequency, all of these things are conducive to life. Life happens when the conditions are perfect. Life happens when you have a solar system with the Jupiter, this is with the sun. You have to be this close to the sun, and then you have good life, You don't have to manipulate it that much. It's going to occur naturally. But I'm thinking about the tree network, they have roots that go all over the place that I'm sure they have a communication to one another, somehow they have a way of communicating. And what do they think of us? I don't know, don't pick me, don't eat me. And then things like insects and spider webs, and I was thinking about that, and butterflies and cocoons, and these insects that also morph. How did that happen? That's so crazy. And then how did we discover the benefits of all these things? how did we figure out ayahuasca, for example, which has to be so manipulated to make it work, and you can't do one without the other plant. You have to put them together in a tea. How did humans figure out all these amazing things to do with plants? And then, how did we screw it up so bad? Plants are like medicine,
Yeah,
and
that's because people are going to people. Let me slow you down for just a sec. So don't you find it a little strange? So we're talking in terms of this cosmic dust. It settles on Earth. It creates like this basic network of the plant basis for the ecosystem on Earth, right? But then, of course, it as the basis for this life cycle that happens, it creates people, right? We become as part of this, and the plants were here long before us, right? And so the question is that this is the craziness, right? When you think in terms of like the mushroom networks, this mycelium networks, and you talk about psilocybin mushrooms, and you take them in some cases, it sort of the people have described like that DMT type experience, like you're saying with ayahuasca and manipulating it and the rest of these things. Is that somehow, is it possible that maybe by sort of entering these altered states like this shamanic state, what we're actually communicating with isn't the machine elf or whatever happens to be in the other realm, but instead it's basically the consciousness, the base intelligence of the plants. And so like we are able to communicate through that idea of the mushroom, that psilocybin mushroom, and become, in tune with the nature spirits, right? I mean, I don't know. Isn't it strange how there's like a cycle of this, and maybe we're actually able to talk to that consciousness, the base consciousness? I don't know. What's your thought there?
Well, I'll admit something to you, but don't tell anybody else. God. Well, anyway, when I was a lot younger, I did try some of those like mushrooms and, other things like bladder and things like that, and LSD, etc. Just experimenting. And I'll tell you the truth. I could tell you, like in nature, we would go into nature sometimes. We'd go into the mountains, and we'd swear the trees were breathing. They were talking to us. And I think other people have said that. You could see or feel the trees breathing. You could feel like they were alive. I don't know if anybody else has ever gone on an acid trip like that, but you swear that the trees are talking to you and that they're alive, and you have a whole different understanding of nature, and they really look like they're breathing, and you see them like almost like human or something. It's a very, it's a trip. What can I tell you? I can't explain what happens to your mind on it, but it is some sort of, it kind of puts you on the same level, I guess, as the nature somehow. Like that's why we enjoy doing that. We would enjoy going into the mountains and communing with nature. Sometimes we go to a park and just listen to the bullfrogs. That was my last time I ever did it. I really didn't like that one. That was scaring me, actually. That when I heard these bullfrogs, I just went on a very bad thing, and I never touched it again.
The bullfrogs did it, did they? Those damn bullfrogs.
Too much.
That's wild. Okay, so then do you think then that plants here on Earth actually could be conscious, right? And again, I know it's sticky, it's complicated, because how do you even define consciousness? But if they're sort of alive in these networks together, and they're kind of looking out for each other, like they said in the chat, sharing water and, kind of communicating these gigantic networks in the forest, the mycelium networks we're talking about, most of it's underground too. Like we'll never even see it. But this is actually happening. Do you think somehow, some way, there's a consciousness there that may be trying to reach out and speak to us?
I would think, we're also dependent on each other. It's like a very symbiotic relationship that we have with plants. We depend on them, for our life, to stay alive. We need them. We need their nourishment. I mean, that's how we stay alive. Except under certain circumstances, maybe you could stay alive without plants. But I think you have to have a very high level of consciousness for that, like monks or certain types of monks that could live on air, supposedly. But I don't understand that. But, there definitely is a relationship there. And I think after a while, maybe we were created just so we could keep propagating them. I don't know. I don't know.
So, okay. So how about this? The plants need us to do something to the earth, and they've created us to be here so that we do something. Is it that reciprocal communication? Do they want to grow the mushrooms so that we take the mushrooms and then we can communicate to the base intelligence, which is the plant life itself? I don't know. This is a wild trip, and I'm not even tripping right now. Just sipping a little beer.
You don't need to ask people on this trip.
Right, exactly.
That's what I like about it. Yeah, no, this is definitely a head trip. But I think, and mold, where did mold come from? Like, who needs mold? It's so nasty. You could really never eradicate it. But mold has such amazing, I think it has an intelligence. I mean, I've seen mold do some crazy things when I had Morgellons. If I told you that, well, I don't know, then you'll know I'm crazy. But, yeah.
You had a list. Go ahead and get back to that. You had some other things.
I think I almost hit most of them. Let me see. Water. Water also has a lot of minerals, etc. There's trees that create an oil to reject, like a defense mechanism. They have this oil, like the neem tree in India. They make this oil, and they also smell really bad to insects. And it's like one of the best things you could use as an insecticide or to use on your skin to moisturize, because it's so thick. The neem tree, it's from India. It makes this really stinky kind of oil. I love the smell of it, but it's a deterrent for insects, And then you have to look at when you look at plants, you have to consider the insects too, because maybe they didn't need really people that much. They just needed insects to kind of spread their seeds, and birds. Birds and insects pretty much is all. Basically, most plants would probably need to keep themselves perpetuating. I don't know where we came in necessarily, in the consciousness of it all. I don't know. I think it's a great topic, and great maybe do stuff. Poison ivy, what else? Corn, GMOs, thorns, Venus flytrap, orchids, butterflies. I think I've got everything. Ayahuasca, mushrooms, yeah. Tree networks. Rocks. I forgot about rocks. Let's not leave out the rocks. I was just seeing some emission on YouTube about rocks. That there were these, it looked like they were these rock formations that looked like they were alive, and that they had created some sort of a network also. Very strange topic there, another real maybe juice thing. I think that it looked like they had really made homes, like dwellings. Actually, it was more like a human interference there. But they were trying to say, this is nature. Nature made rocks just knew that naturally, But so there was some question about it. Like, can rocks really grow and create little shelters? Anyway, just saying.
Real quick before you go. So you brought up another fantastic point here that kind of got my mind racing a little bit. In that, let's say that the plant, sort of the plant basis of that base consciousness or that base intelligence, is somehow trying to communicate with us, right? And then we've sort of gone into the deep end of GMOs, the genetically modified organisms, right? And then we're creating like Frankenstein versions of what nature intended. Do you think somehow, some way that if they're trying to communicate, I mean the base plant life, the base plant consciousness, if it's somehow trying to communicate with us through that vibration or frequency, or like Joe was describing, maybe that static on the radio type of thing, do you think that we're creating like monstrous versions, sort of Frankenstein plant consciousness through GMOs? What do you think about that?
That's possible. I don't know. Yeah, the whole balance of nature could be all messed up soon. I mean, I think we're definitely altering humans enough that they're not going to be considered human anymore. They're going to be some other kind of life form. It's no longer human. So I don't know, the plants, when you start manipulating them to the point that we have, they lose a lot of their nutrition. We're not getting the same benefits from our plants as we used to. Even the soil that we've messed up enough, we don't have enough minerals. They have to fortify everything. They have to add back the minerals. Everything in the United States has fortified with iron, with minerals, with vitamins, because the vitamins have been removed, because we've just removed everything out of our soil, and we're just using too many chemicals. So we have to kind of compensate with additives. And we just really ruined our, the beauty of nature, and inherent vitamins and benefits we get from plants, I feel like they probably feel like they're ripped off. What did you do to me? I used to be a perfect orange. What's up with that? Why'd you mess with me? Now what? How do we go back to where we were? I want to be an original peach again, I don't know.
That would take me back to the Garden of Eden. There's some deepness in that, just that analogy there too. Daryl, you are the best. Fantastic stuff. Thanks for coming with a list. Thanks for coming with great ideas. Thanks for expanding all of our consciousness. You're amazing.
Thank you too. Thanks for a great topic. You're the best.
Appreciate it. Daryl here has a YouTube channel. Check it out. She sings in English and in French. Links in the description. Scroll down. It says follow Daryl here. Thank you very much for the phone call, my friend. All right, this is the deal, right? We're talking about this idea. So it started like this, right? This idea that scientists were able to sort of simulate this this cosmic dust and say that the basic building blocks of life, amino acids, they were able to actually simulate this to be to exist in space, to exist in the vacuum and kind of floating around as just this cosmic dust. All right. So I took it one step further and said, okay, so let's throw out panspermia and say that life didn't come here on comets and meteorites and all the rest of this stuff, right? Let's say it was always there. It's always in space floating around and it's just kind of layering on everything. And it's just waiting for basically the key to unlock it, which of course would be the sunlight, which would be the water, which would be, the normal things that you would expect the basic building blocks of life to need to create this photosynthesis, these simple sugars, and sort of this chain of life, right? But then again, the very first things that began were not just these simple organisms; they were these other things that became this entire plant basis, this like bedrock of life itself that let us kind of spawn behind it, kind of riding the coattails of the plants. So the question tonight I have is, do you think that if that's the case, right, do you think plants somehow, some way are maybe that base consciousness, that base level of intelligence? And if so, do you think they're trying to communicate with us? And so we've discussed a little bit how different photosynthesis, different color or light on different planets or what have you, different situations might create different plants entirely, like alien plant species, right? And so the weird part about that becomes, well, if like maybe Daryl said, maybe the plants on other planets are farming humans or farming aliens. I don't know. Well, so the question becomes, do you think that maybe somehow, some way, the plant life basis, bedrock of life, this base intelligence or base consciousness, is somehow trying to bring it full circle and maybe communicate with us through this idea of tripping on mushrooms, right? So the mushrooms, it unlocks this level of consciousness to where maybe back to those machine elves or whatever the entities are that we see on the other side of that maybe that's the plants themselves sort of manifesting to us in this mushroom trip, trying to tell us, well, whatever they're trying to tell us. I have no idea. Daryl with shots of maybe juice. Heck yeah. So that's what's on my mind tonight. So first, do you think plants could be conscious? And this idea that if they're the basic building block of life, do you think somehow, some way they're actually trying to communicate with us? Love to hear your thoughts on this. We've had some amazing stuff so far from Daryl and Joe, and looking to hear from you. As always, the entire idea of this is to hear what you have to say, and thanks for bailing me out, you guys. I appreciate it very much. But that's the question. What do you think about the consciousness of plants? Do you think that maybe it is sort of maybe obviously it's a symbiotic situation, right? We need each other, clearly. If there's no plants, there's no us. But do you think somehow, some way they're trying to communicate? And maybe this idea of taking mushrooms and entering an altered state is the way we communicate with this plant. Well, consciousness, plants, intelligence, you tell me. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds on Michael Strange. I know, it seems weird, but that's okay. Cosmic quantum tunneling and the consciousness of plants. Are they trying to communicate with us? Well, we're going to keep talking about this. Keep taking your calls. One more time, 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds on Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we think about this idea. Do plants have some sort of consciousness? And if they do, we're talking about like a base intelligence, a base consciousness, and maybe this idea of cosmic dust being the original panspermia. Do you think maybe plants, number one, do you think they're conscious? Number two, if so, do you think somehow, some way they're trying to communicate with us? Maybe through, I don't know, the mushroom trip. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. Let's go to Austin in Michigan. What's up, my friend? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you, bro?
Excellent. How's it going? I just called in, been listening for about an hour.
Right on. Doing good. I'm going to turn you up just a smidge unless you want to speak up a little bit. But yeah, doing well, man. What do you think about this consciousness in plants and this whole idea of maybe mushroom trips as the idea they're trying to communicate with us? Am I too far off the rails for you tonight?
No, not at all. That's how I felt before I tried it. I did a couple of years to try to figure out what it was about on research, and did it one time just as a learning experience. Don't plan on really doing it again ever. It was just, pretty serious for me to try. And I think that's absolutely true. I think they want us to know something, whatever it is that it tunes us with. We're all energy. I felt like I could see things differently, kind of like how you were explaining it, honestly. It was really making me thinking about it a lot. When it first kicked in, I got out and I could see the sky, the colors, and it felt like I could see the same colors, but more detail of the colors, Yeah, just because of my perception, too. It's because of my perception, the source of me, it felt like, was changed. So I just started deciding to view things differently, and it allowed me, in doing so, making that decision, it allowed me to see the beauties in life that everyone takes for granted. And I went around, people say don't go anywhere when you're on shrooms. I went everywhere. My friends took me everywhere, and I noticed people were really not minding their own business when I was around. They really wanted to tense up, and I could tell that they got all awkward because I had trouble holding in my laughs because I could just see how tense everyone was, and I felt like it was such a tragedy, and I just had to laugh. But then I didn't want to give this guy a heart attack from laughing, so I kept cool,
Yeah, man. Hey, man, keep it together. Keep it cool when you're on the shrooms. So clearly there's like an awakening somehow within our mind, kind of an expanded consciousness with this idea of a mushroom trip. But back to the idea of this base consciousness and maybe plants being conscious. Do you think that's really like the end all be all of the evolutionary process? It's like okay, the plants come through this cosmic dust. They create this entire life cycle based on the plant life on the planet. We can measure Earth that way because that's the only one we have to really talk about in those scientific terms. But then the entire idea is to build us with our own consciousness, right, through these billions of years of evolution or whatever the hell you want to call it. Then on top of that, they introduce the mushroom, the psilocybin, and try and, speak to us. Let me ask you this: when you were on your mushroom tripping phase there, did you actually encounter entities like they say, sort of these DMT trips with machine elves and things like this, or maybe voices speaking to you from somewhere else, anything like that?
All the voices were voices that I felt like I was already familiar with. I was always into what I couldn't see, and I felt like I was more in tune with that, and it reminded me of, deep down, it really, honestly, it reminded me that there's a spiritual war that's always been going on, and that I've seen that humanity is ignoring the beauty in themselves, too much.
Okay. All right.
Mic drop. That's what I really felt deep down, honestly.
Yeah, that's fine, and I can buy that as well. I think you can do that too.
That's exclusive. That's exclusive.
Okay.
Troubled Minds exclusive.
All right. The short, quick Troubled Minds exclusive. All right. So, but so, I mean, you could do that. You could maybe sort of commune with nature without tripping, right? I mean, it's possible, like through meditative states or whatever, sort of like doing it the old school way. But I don't know. Like Daryl was saying, like when she was tripping a little bit, she felt like the trees were breathing. Did you ever get that idea that maybe there's a lot more to the plant life and maybe a consciousness behind it that we don't know about while you were on this?
Heck yeah, absolutely. When you were talking that whole time when Daryl was on, and a little before that, I was feeling like all of it. I was like, yep. I mean, I have my own words for what I seen, but the sense is the same. And that's what it comes down to, Like, I could see my inner source perception was changed. So everything was changed. My feeling was changed from that. If you change the source of your electricity, everything changes. And that's what I felt like was happening. And it's weird that I worded it that way, but yeah, it felt like I could see more of the trees, even though it didn't really look like hallucination. Hallucination, the definition is like any change in your perception or something like that. So I guess it was a hallucination, but I loved looking at the trees a lot. I could feel that they were talking, but the talking isn't really voices with me. It's always been like me reading the frequency, and I always felt like I could understand it. Does that make sense? There never really were words. It just felt like I could see and feel. And when I put my feet on the ground for the first time, I was just like, I felt really lucky to be alive, and I felt like it's crazy how my friends didn't. I thought that was nuts.
All right, I'm with you. Okay, so then so you believe there is some sort of like plant level consciousness here, and we've heard this before. We've heard like trees whispering to each other in the wind, right? Like it's sort of the way they communicate, maybe audibly, but of course we're talking about these mycelium networks that go miles underground and sort of are self-regulating. These entire sort of swaths of forests or entire forests are sort of kind of looking out for each other as best they can as part of these networks, right? And so if that's the case, and we're talking about different species, like clearly different DNA structures, these different plants, and we got trees and we got fungus and we got all level of in between, and they're all working together somehow. Well, what the hell's really going on, right? Like there's some wildness to this.
Star Wars. It's like Star Wars. That's what it reminded me of, honestly. It felt like I understood the Force more. I could feel it.
Right.
Because I could feel what the people were thinking that were across from me when my friends took me to eat at a fast food place, and that was like, I knew that would be the last time I ate fast food. Because after I took mushrooms, it was crazy. I was always reading ingredients. I was like, where does this come from? How is this made? Where is this going? Like, I could tell there was a huge neglect on ourselves on this world. Like, too many have neglected ourselves, And that's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me too. Is like there's always that moment that kind of locks you into like what really is going on around us, and that's a good way to put it. So what about this? What are your thoughts on this? Maybe this cosmic consciousness. Do you think there's a link that maybe the plants, as the basis of life, as part of this life cycle on Earth, do you think that maybe somehow, some way, it's all full circle in that the whole idea is for them to create a planet that's hospitable to life through its own DNA structures and this sort of plant consciousness to maybe bring us about, and then somehow, some way, maybe communicate with us, to make us do something, to ask something of us, to who knows? I think what that would be, I think, is really up in the air, and it's difficult to say. Depends on who you ask, but But you think this is what's really going on, sort of this like a circle of life, but just like a very, very large circle to where they've got us now. Now the next step is how do we communicate with that base level of consciousness?
Yeah, I think there's many ways. Meditation, maybe some state consciousness changers. Like there's lots of stuff out there that seems to move consciousness that is not really legal to do. I guess Terrence McKenna would love to take the mic from me right now while I just said that, because he has a lot of crazy stuff on drugs, right? And I think it's interesting because I personally only chose shrooms once and marijuana a little bit, and that's my personal decision, and that's fine. But I learn a lot from other people that decide to try them all.
Gotcha.
You know?
All right.
I had a best friend that was like that, and it was really crazy to see him try some stuff. And I'm glad he respected me for not giving into the peer pressure, but I don't like to have friends like that expect you to do what they do just because they do it. That ain't no friend of mine.
There you go. For sure. 100%. I appreciate you sharing your experience there. It's not an easy thing to do. Thank you very much. We got Jennifer behind you, so what's your final thought here tonight? Do you think there is something to this, or do you think I'm just way off the rails tonight?
No, not at all. The Mycelium Network, what if it's like nature's Wi-Fi? Because when I had those trees cut from my neighbor's yard, I don't know why my neighbor thought long story, doesn't matter. Anyway, the trees are on the concrete and they're growing mushrooms, but I thought the Mycelium Network is from the ground, because some of the mushroom videos I watched, like I was doing some research on it, and a lot of the guys were saying on there that the fruit is the actual mushroom. The brain of everything is like in the ground and the roots of the tree and stuff. And the tree was cut like a year ago, and it started growing mushrooms like crazy last year. The year after it was cut, you know. Yeah, and they're still there, tons.
Okay. And again, it's not a coincidence, right? Some of this stuff seems like it's happening for a reason. You're the best, brother. Thanks for sharing. Short Quick here. This is my friend Austin. He's got a YouTube channel called Short Quick. Check it out. Links in the description down below. You're the best, bro. You're the best. Thanks for calling. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of this.
All right. Peace out. Much love.
Have a great one. You too, man. There you go. You want to be part of the show tonight? We're discussing this idea of plants as consciousness, and maybe are they trying to communicate with us this base level of intelligence or base level of consciousness? And if so, how? Or again, do you think I'm just nuts? And that's totally fine. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show just like this. Let's go to Jennifer in Missouri. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. Go right ahead.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, this is a good show.
Good evening. Thank you. Took me a minute to find my sea legs, but you guys helped me get there. So go right ahead. I'm sure you got some ideas here.
Yeah. No, you always have it. So anyway, yeah, I think that they are conscious. You know, I don't just think it. I mean, they have like these extensive neural networks that are very similar to us. I mean, though they don't have a brain, the plants, all the different varieties and species, they all have different, vast networks of similar firings to the way that our synapses in our brain, the way that our neural network works, and they're able to obviously the plants make like long-reaching plans, for example, like the May apple tree predicts it kind of takes in all the information, like all these different plants, they take it in trees, basically all of the, all of the plant life on the planet takes in the information from the environment on the surface of the earth and underneath the earth too, takes in all that information and it makes a calculation of sorts of how it's going to, plan out its growth. So that mayapple tree, I think it takes like 2 years. It'll spend like 2 years taking in all the information of the environment. And then it can, in some, not to, let me stay with one thought at a time, but like, it'll plan that out so that when it starts to grow, it has all the information it needs to be successful, you know? And even, I forgot the first thought, but anyway, though, so they're planning out what they're going to do before they even start growing a lot of times in order to be successful. And it's just amazing that they're taking in, you know, like, and some plants, they even have the ability to feel like, you know, they feel the entire environment, like, and like even there's some plant that can, like, the weight of something like microbial weight, like very lightweight, it senses it and goes to that location to see what it is. Like, it's taking in all that information. And they're also communicating, you know, not only with each other, but yeah, they're definitely communicating with bacteria and nematodes and microorganisms on all levels. And I think as far as communicating with us, it's possible that they're communicating with bacteria that we may come in contact with and communicate with the bacteria that's on us, and therefore there may be an exchange of information. And I think that that's very likely, considering that they're probably more intelligent than us, possibly more conscious than us, or just as conscious. Their lifespan, you know, like when you think of the yew tree, the conifers and everything, those things live for like, some of them actually they consider they might be even immortal. You know, some of these evergreen trees wouldn't die unless you cut them down. Some of these really ancient evergreens, like Methuselah, which is this ancient yew tree that's like, I think it's like estimated 900 years old. And it's just amazing. And they're territorial even, you know, like some of these plants are, so that's a type of consciousness, you know, to be aware of the infringement of another organism or plant and to react to it or to change, that's what it was. They have the ability, like the octopus kind of, how we were describing how they'll react or plan how they're going to react, and have very fast changes in their DNA and their genetic structure in order to respond to the same problem when it comes up again later. So that kind of planning, like it's thinking or, you know, taking in all these different factors to decide how it's going to respond to that same stimuli in the future. So I think that, and as far as the communication goes, like they're able to communicate through that root network, one, through like chemical processes in the environment, two, and that's a form of communication in itself that the other plants around them sense, and they're very social, it seems. And then when you think about the fact that, like there's talk that in these tree groves, that through the root networks, it can sense its own family in a way, so that even if it senses that one of the trees in its grove, for example, might be ill, it will send nutrients necessary or that might help through the vein network, the root network. It's really amazing. And then the similarities of us to them is incredible as far as the veins and the chlorophyll, and the sap, almost like, you know, like blood or something. And there's also too, there's all these old mythos about the trees. You know, we've covered that a little bit. Like about, I think it's like the Slavs and the Norse and the First Nations, they talk about that we came from the trees, that we were that we were trees at one point or something like that. And even in the story of the tree of life, the idea, like the Celts have some mythos about that there's a tree that gave life to all things. And so they were afraid to cut down any of the trees for fear of, a lot of different cultures were afraid to cut down trees. I think like the Persians too would let them fall rather than cut them down. So there's a big change in the mindset of how we think about all this. So it's really interesting in the ancient world that they were thinking this way, I think. And anyway, and as far as the giant tree thing goes, if you think about if at the beginning of this purple dawn idea, if you had a different gravity, then it makes sense that that they would grow to gigantuate, proportions, so that they would also sustain the gigantic creatures, So it makes sense that there at one point in time could have been unbelievably huge trees. And we hear about that in mythos too. But we know that it was sacred we know that people found them to be sacred, worship the trees in a way. And I think there is a communication.
Yeah, I think so. It is interesting too. I know you're a Lord of the Rings nerd like I am. Remember the two trees, like the two trees of Valinor. So it is interesting that in so many of these mythologies, they talk about like the very first things were sometimes music or sometimes the void or sometimes sound, but then after that, it's always typically it turns into trees or these ancient primordial plants as the basis of life itself. Sort of the idea of Gaia and Mother Earth and this whole Gaia hypothesis I'm always talking about. I don't know, pretty wild stuff. So what do you think? We got a couple minutes left. What do you think about the idea that through maybe this long, let's say, evolution cycle, we have mushrooms now as a way for them to unlock our consciousness and communicate with plants directly through the physical means of a mushroom? What do you think about that?
I don't think that's necessary, but I think it's something that you can do. The same thing as like deadly nightshade or any of the pharmakeia plants. All the plants have some kind of properties to them. And when you take them inside of you, then you're going to be affected. It's going to do something. In fact, the idea of the tree of life, the idea of it was that they ate of it, and then they were perceiving shame and guilt and sin. And the whole issue was that if they ate from the tree of immortality and lived forever, they'd be stuck in that state forever, was the idea. And if you think about, these, yes. So, I mean, I think that you can take all kinds of, anytime it's very possible that plants, different kinds of plants, change human consciousness because they, create a phenomenon in the brain that would make you think different than you had thought before. And you can probably do that with all kinds of different compounds and all kinds of different, plants, including the psilocybin mushrooms. I think that all of those different compounds are careful, because of what it could do when it depends on the brain. And I think it depends on, how... think of it as a medicine rather than something. I would say people should think about it as more like a medicine and I think a lot of people do. I think most people are very responsible with it. But just like all plants, you wouldn't want to take too many aspirin, for example, or anything. It all could be damaging in large amounts. But it definitely would change consciousness. I think all the different plant compounds would.
I see where you're headed. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make sure that if you take something, it's legal in your jurisdiction. You got to say that. Be responsible out there. Jennifer, you're the best. We're out of time. Thank you so much for the amazing stuff as always. Thanks for the phone call. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Awesome show tonight.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Thanks,
you too. Jennifer here has a YouTube channel. Check it out. Links in the description down below. So let's follow Jennifer here. She's been co-host on the show several times, always contributing with great ideas, as you can tell. Please, all the folks that call into the show, the folks that have YouTube channels, links are in the description below. Go give them a follow. And all right, so as we finish this, like I said, you guys are blowing my minds as always, and thank you for that. Because sometimes I have a hard time blowing my own mind because you don't know where to start, you don't know where to begin. But we ended. We made it, guys. All right, so if you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. If you're listening to us on any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. And as it goes, yes, be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. Okay, well, made it. Sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, and thank you guys for calling in and snapping it back to where exactly we need to be talking about this stuff. Thank you to all the phone calls tonight. Thanks to all the amazing people in the chat. We're still talking about this. We're still doing this. What do you think? This idea of plants as consciousness, maybe the base consciousness even, and maybe the idea that somehow, some way they're trying to communicate with us somewhere, somehow. One more time, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. And there you go. What's up, Caesar? How you doing? I see Gigi, Veronica, and Caesar in the high desert. How you guys doing over on Rockfan? All right, so we're going to take a 2-minute break. More Troubled Minds on the way. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Thank you very much for bailing me out. Third hour's for you. What are your thoughts on this? More coming up. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. 2-minute break. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we're doing our thing, streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we're off the Fringe FM now, which is a digital radio, and we're just, now it's the third hour. Third hour is for us. This is where we can kind of let the hair down a little bit, go from blue hair to brown hair, and start talking about whatever we want to talk about. As you guys know, non-linear, open-ended, we can take this wherever you want to take it, and that's what we're doing, and we're going to keep on taking your calls and discussing this idea of plants as consciousness. It's been well determined that plants scream when you cut them. If you don't water them appropriately, some species will cry out with sort of micro frequencies or inaudible to the human ear type of thing, where you just don't know what the hell's really going on. And is there a consciousness involved? What's happening? Are they really reaching out to us, trying to make us understand something that we maybe don't understand? And like they said in the chat, maybe Mike went to hug a tree. Maybe I did. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Let's go to James. James in Michigan. What's up, my friend? How you doing? Welcome to Troubled Minds.
I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Super crisp, man. You got some audio perfection going on over there. Welcome. What's on your mind tonight, my man?
Well, I'm glad it's the third hour because this got me thinking of one thing. How often do you hear or do you experience when you go from, let's say, a city or even just a neighborhood to the woods? How often do you experience or do you hear about other people experiencing this feeling like you are just entering a totally different area?
Oh, yes.
People, you get a feeling like maybe you're being watched, but you can see, maybe it's the time of year where there's no leaves anywhere and you can see straight through into this, these woods, and there doesn't appear to be anything there.
Which we've talked about sort of those transition periods in nature or outside of nature, right? Where there's maybe some magic there. And maybe it's not magic, maybe it's consciousness. Maybe it's the consciousness of these plants. I think that's what you're describing, right?
Yeah, and maybe part of, you mentioned mythology earlier, and part of folklore about like, let's say, haunted forests, maybe part of that comes from, especially when people don't report seeing anything, they just get this feeling. Maybe that comes from the actual forest.
Yeah, like you're being watched by the forest itself. Like you step into the grove of trees and the eyeballs are on you. There's just no eyeballs.
Yep. Yeah. Just think of how often you hear about, and even when people have experiences where they see something but they can't tell what it is, it's hard to say. It makes me think of also just nature spirits or beings, and how closely they're connected to all the trees and all the plants and everything, or if in some cases that maybe they are, an extension of these plants that are moving around, or trees. Because the whole thing with the trees, it's interesting. I've had that feeling before because I prefer to be indoors myself more than anything else, but every so often when I go out to visit family or whatever, I come across a forest or trees and everything, and there's a different feeling, and it's not bad in any way, but there's a different feeling, and it's like a different energy, a different feel of energy around you.
Yeah, like almost like it's intentional. Like if you're paying close enough attention, then maybe, like I'm describing, maybe that communication is happening. We're just too dense to really feel it, right? I mean, you got to think, if something's alive, we can't even define our own consciousness. So how the hell can we say that a tree or something doesn't have a similar level, right? Maybe not the same. They're not like, getting in the car and commuting to work in the morning type of thing, but just being the tree is their work. So I don't know, maybe they are, in metaphorical terms anyway. But I don't know. There's a lot here in that. I don't know. Maybe juice, man. Maybe juice. So I do like the idea that you say, and I felt this my whole life too, that there are, when you kind of go into a nature area, right? You kind of come out of the concrete jungle and get near a place with a bunch of plants. It feels different. It really does. And it's not just, there's more shade or something like this. It feels like there's something there, sort of those, like we've talked about, the ancient tree spirits, or the elemental spirits, or things like this as well. It makes me wonder, maybe that elemental spirit is actually maybe the consciousness of the plants themselves. Pretty wild stuff. What else you got for us, my friend?
Well, and if you think of more extreme cases of haunted areas, or areas that are said to be forbidden or cursed or whatever, that are just nature areas, I wonder what the history of the area is. I wonder if maybe at some point, and again, you mentioned tree hugging earlier, if we think of places that have been heavily, just basically pillaged, areas where just all the wood is taken, or all the, anything, or just cut down, or just bulldozed over. If you think of that, I mean, I could see whatever this consciousness is, in that surrounding area, not being happy with that, and maybe that's what gives off that ominous feeling in some places. Like they don't like us. meaning belligerent people going to belligerent, and the forest no likey. Something like that, right? I dig it, man. I dig it. And maybe that's the idea. Maybe it is. The ominous feeling is not like you would expect a haunting, but it's like sort of that nature sort of rejecting, the chaoticness of mankind, of humankind. That makes a lot of sense to me, man. That's pretty cool stuff. And there's been a lot of haunted forests out there. I'm sure, again, James here does a podcast called Salcedo Paranormal, and he does 5 nights a week. He talks about haunted stuff, ghosts and this and that and the other thing. So I'm sure you've come across haunted forests, right, in your discussions at some point? Oh, not only haunted, but just, there's, of course, if you get into cryptids, there's all kinds of beings that, are seen in the forest, that from Bigfoot to, orbs, lights floating around forests. There's all kinds of stuff that is witnessed, down to like fairies or fae, gnomes, all different things. And of course, all these things can be seen, in different reports. You'll hear about them being seen out in the middle of the city too, but it does seem like there are more reports of these strange others, being out there in nature in a lot of cases.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why we do this, because you guys always blown my mind, taking it places I hadn't actually considered. And that's part of the trouble with me, is I try and bite off more than I can chew sometimes. So thank you, James, for being part of the crew here. That kind of snaps me back too with some real takes here. I appreciate it. So what do you think about that idea that there maybe the plants as a consciousness are somehow trying to communicate with us, and then maybe through the idea of these mushrooms, that idea, right? Like people have described like that shamanic journey and sort of the ayahuasca or the mushroom trips as, enlightening in many ways, but in some cases being able to communicate with things that they cannot necessarily see. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and that idea is kind of what led me to this idea that maybe that idea or that method, taking these different mushrooms or compounds from within nature is a more direct method. But if you don't do that, then you just get the sense of something, of nature out there and it being aware of you, if you don't take any of these things. So that's kind of what got me to this idea to begin with, the reason I called in. So I think it's possible.
I dig it. Possible's good enough for me. Hey, we'll call that maybe juice. So what else you got for us, my friend?
Well, and just talking about the trees, as far as like being like in fiction and mythology, there's Stephen King also uses the idea of moving trees in one of his books. The Talisman actually is what it's called. But and then of course, and one of the things that I've seen in certain video games, Diablo 3, there are these trees that will uproot themselves in the game, different levels, and try to kill you. So it's interesting how that's kind of made it through. But there have been stories from people, have experiences or see strange things in the woods, like trees that appear to have faces from time to time, or they move in ways that don't make sense. So it's really interesting how stories of experiences kind of also lend themselves to fiction, which also lends itself to this idea to begin with.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is strange that, like we, as people, we just have this stupid, obtuse way of kind of discounting life around us when, I mean, if you pay attention, like there's a lot happening, right? There's I'm sure you've seen a time lapse of a plant like growing and dying and, like dropping seeds. And I mean, that stuff is incredible. It just happens on such like a sort of a slow scale based on, like that human level of perception that we're just morons, like we're morons because we just can't, let's say the hubris of humans, back to that whole idea that we're just, we're the cat's meow, and we kind of ain't jack when you look at the, the awesomeness of all of nature, right?
And I mean, if you look at just the age alone, we're nothing compared to a lot of these plants. Especially if they, those plants that make, like you said, they make their own seeds and then they appear to die, but those seeds are still part of them in a way. So they come back. And there's that process over and over again. So if you want to look at it in that way, they've been here since almost the beginning. And, putting aside reincarnation, we can't say that. I don't think, our entire race has been here since the beginning like they have, like plants have, in that direct way.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. So basically, maybe there's something to this, is that the consciousness, maybe these nature spirits are actually some sort of entity that we just can't we can't communicate with just yet. That's the idea here. I don't know, man. I don't know. They're pretty wild stuff. Like I'm with you. It feels different. It feels different when you're around living things, instead of that concrete jungle in a parking lot somewhere. It's just it's interesting. Like you can that whole communing with nature. You got to pay attention. You got to be quiet and listen. And there's some things happening it's pretty amazing stuff. God, you're the best, James. You are the best, my friend. What else you got?
That was it. Great show. Great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. James has a podcast called Salcedo Paranormal. Check it out. Links in the description. He does it 5 nights a week on Discord. And there was a little Discord scare earlier today, but lucky it came back up, and here we are doing it. But you can find him, links in the description down below, and go join the Discord as well. I'll get his Discord and share it in the chat, and come say hi. You're the best, James. Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you, and I can do that real quick. But thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot. You too. All right, so that's what we're doing. We're still taking your phone calls. Matt, we got MJ squeaked in there right around the same time. I'm going to take MJ, then go to Matt, and let's do this. So let's go to MJ. We're still taking your calls, talking about this idea of consciousness of plants. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. MJ, go right ahead. You're on Troubled Minds.
Hey, Michael. I got a couple short stories.
Sure.
To prove consciousness of plants. I have a piece of property, and I had a bunch of cedar trees on it, and I will go down and douse my property with a pendulum to ask about removing trees, moving things around, and I got a high emotional, like taking some trees down, it got very emotional, and so I didn't bother them. I just almost felt like crying. It was just like this, it's really close. It's just a very, I don't know, we talk about death, but it was just emotional, so I didn't do anything. But they need to be thinned out. That's way too thick. And so this winter, we had a massive snowstorm come through in my area, and it was really heavy, wet snow. Cedar trees don't lose their foliage. They're green year-round. And so the snow was so heavy, all the trees around that needed to be taken out because they're too old, they're falling apart. The cedar trees either got bent over where they're not going to grow straight again, or they broke in half. So the whole area where I wanted to clean out, I'm going to put that nature came along and did it for me to show me where you can take stuff out and other stuff got left. Okay? The second one was I have this circular driveway, and I have a male holly tree. There's a male and female holly tree. And the male holly tree is up against the bottom of the circle, or the top of the circle, however you want to put it. The branches never grew past the edge of the driveway there. Never. The tree would grow out to the sides and then back towards the road, but the branches never came any further than that as long as it's been there, because you drive around it. And I don't drive around it that much. I mean, I'm out of here maybe 8 times a month or something. So I don't really drive around it like an everyday thing. And the tree knew not to go past that point, because I hate cutting trees up because people plant them in the dumbest places so they can't, be a tree. Then you have to start trimming them and all these other things and cutting them back up, and it just doesn't. I don't think it's fair. But it was in a precarious spot. But the tree knew not to go past that point. I didn't have to cut the branches off, and it just knew not to do that. There was anything that lives and breathes or does anything, creates seeds. It has a consciousness. Nothing can survive without a consciousness, even a rock. It has a consciousness. It has materials that made it the way it is, so it has a consciousness.
Oops, muted myself. Okay, and that idea is actually called panpsychism. If you guys are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? It's a actual scientific theory. If you want to check that out. Okay, so you definitely agree that there's some consciousness to plants here. They have to be. You just have to as being part of this universe. What about the idea that maybe they're actually communicating with us? Maybe not just on a level of sort of as like a symbiotic relationship of I'm the tree, you're the person type of thing. What about like a higher level of communication? Do you think they're actually trying to do that as well?
I don't know. I would say to a certain extent, yes, if you're willing to communicate with them and you're willing to listen, and because like I said, when I get to my trees, I'm very passionate about them, and I can feel like the ones that are out there, they're dying, and I'm very sad. And they understand life and death and reproduction. So they don't get caught up in that. I do. And to a certain extent, my mom had this flower bed that was just getting overrun with the flowers, and they're choking themselves out. And I went over and looked at it. I thought, I'm going to move them. So I repurposed them around the yard so they all have a nice, spacious place to be. And when I put them out there, they're kind of like weak looking. They're coming up right now, and they are so healthy. And they have their own area to be in, and they have a place where they can stretch out. Absolutely. Because I got a couple of Japanese maple trees, and I doused the property to find out where to put them. And they're doing great. I put out a couple of fruit trees. I did not douse, and one of them's dying. I didn't pick the right spot. I didn't douse for it. I just thought, oh, hey, this is a cool spot, and put them there. So absolutely, they have once you learn that, it's like farmers, if you've been generation of farmers, they do that. They communicate with what's going on. They can, and a lot of people will not touch the old trees that are dying. They won't touch them until they're down on the ground. A lot of people do that in this area, unless they're, having to clear the land for property and housing and stuff like that. And then they use the wood to help build the house. That's another thing. When you have trees that are doing that, you're taking trees down. It's best to respect the tree and repurpose the wood either for like a fire pit or fireplace, or use it for lumber to do something with. You just don't cut it down and burn it and get rid of it. That's basically disrespectful to the process of the cycle of life with all things. It needs to be repurposed and used for something else. So basically the energy lives on in a sense. It's kind of corny sounding, but some of that, either that or you let them get old and they, die where they are, and then you kind of pick it up. Because I will go up to them and douse them and ask them, is it time for you to, do you feel like your life is spent and you're, ready to, because I got to, cut you down or dig you up or something like that. And it'll tell me yes or no. And most of the time I know that, the tree's old. And when you can tell that, it has like this really like silver greenish moss that grows on it. And that lets you know that the tree is dying. It's dying out because it starts growing all over the tree. And that moss lives off the nutrients of the tree, but not until it starts to die.
Okay. All right. So it's so like everything, right? It's complicated. Just a quick shout out, real quick. We're back on the Fringe FM. We're having technical difficulties over there with Joe Roop's show. His internet's down, so we just jump right back on the Fringe. We're gonna keep on trucking. We're gonna go till 11 p.m. on the Fringe FM, and after that we'll have Ryan Gable coming up from 11. He's gonna go for 3 hours as well. So we're back on Fringe. Thanks MJ for popping in here. What else you got regarding this? You think that it's a little bit off the rails in terms of this maybe doing mushrooms to communicate with this maybe base level of consciousness that happens to be the plants, or this idea of the Mycelium Network, as they say?
You mean actually doing like hallucinogenic type of drugs with mushrooms?
Yeah, exactly. Like hallucinogenic mushrooms that will actually... So again, right, so we're talking about plants as consciousness. Mushrooms themselves are maybe a vehicle, they call it as part of the shamanic journey, right? It's been one of those things that people have used to meditate for years and years and years, like thousands of years type of thing. So my point is, and the theory is that, do you think that maybe the plants as themselves and the hallucinogens they create are a way of maybe them trying to communicate back with us? Once you're tripping on mushrooms or something, you're actually talking about to I don't know, what's the Ents from Middle Earth, the walking trees or something? I don't know. What do you think about that? The idea?
I want to say not really, because my experience has been, if I'm going to communicate with something, I will try to feel that something, and then feel the consciousness of it, and then let it start talking back to me. As far as taking like mushrooms to give you that psychedelic thing, I believe that opens up your consciousness to it. But I also feel it's a part of, let's say, because I've meditated for years, so I've taken a long route to get there. You can use the mushrooms and the drugs to do that. Problem is, you don't learn the path on how to get there again. That means you have to take the mushrooms again, or DMT or something like that, to get yourself there, because you never learned the process of getting there on your own. So I think it's a way of waking up to it and possibly communicating. You've taken the mushroom in. The mushroom's now communicating with you from the inside, not the outside. So it's a possible way, but I mean, even at that, you still need to learn how to meditate and get there on your own, so you know the path.
Okay.
So to a certain extent, yeah, we eat vegetables. We get the nutrients from vegetables. I have wild plants out here. I know I can take and eat them. Like I have a wild mint patch. It's called a mulberry bush. When they're really, really super young, before the stem starts to turn purple, you can pull the leaves off and eat them like kale, or you can cook them in a soup. Sort of thing. If you get them when the stem starts to turn purple, they're poisonous. So you kind of have to look, and birds never bother the berries. And if you want to take the berries, they're great dye. I mean, you can mush them up and put a little water, mush them up, and you can dye your T-shirts, and the dye holds forever. It never goes away. So you've got stuff like that. But I think maybe the hallucinogenic mushrooms are a way for taking that trip, but at the same time, maybe it's an opening up for you to learn how to get there. But I don't go with the drug part of it. I've learned to meditate on my own.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. I appreciate your take. Great stuff as always, MJ. I appreciate you listening. Thanks for the phone call. You're the best, my friend. Always a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Have a great night. There you go. We're still taking your phone calls tonight. We're discussing this idea of plants as consciousness. Again, we started with sort of this idea of cosmic dust and maybe sort of a plant-based, let's say, life cycle, right? Of course, without plants, we don't exist, and that whole thing. So my whole idea tonight was, look, maybe the base consciousness, the base intelligence of this entire planet is the plant life that we're living in, that we're amidst, the forest, the trees, all the things, right? Like, you know what they are, the fungus, we're talking about the mushrooms. Well, what if this is actually the consciousness of the planet, and we're sort of like a secondary to that, and we just don't know how to tap in to communicate, and maybe the plant life itself is sort of these mycelium networks or these huge root networks in these forests or whatnot are actually trying to somehow communicate with us. I don't know. You tell me. I have no idea what's really going on with this. I'm just, as always, just kind of thinking about things, talking about things, and considering all the things. If you want to be part of the discussion tonight, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show, and it's as simple as that. Let's go to my good friend Matt in California. Are you there, my friend? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you tonight?
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. Just hanging out, doing our thing, talking about crazy stuff on a random Tuesday. Bro.
Yeah, good show and good callers tonight.
Thank you.
I have a list, but I'm going to start at the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, perfect.
Because that was a garden.
Take your time. Go right ahead.
That was a garden that had all the plants, and in the Garden of Eden, there's different plants. There was a tree of life, and there's also the tree of knowledge. And I think Adam and Eve got kicked out from eating from the tree of knowledge. And it said each of those trees, there's the water underneath them is like a super special water. So like the tree of life, the water under the tree of life is the water for the fountain of youth. So, and then the other trees that might have different water that go down to different things. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's probably one of the more obvious things I didn't get to, so thank you for bringing it up, and I don't mean obvious in a bad way. I mean obvious in a good way, that I probably should have started with sort of the idea of consciousness as plants and the idea of the Garden of Eden, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of just a beautiful way to tie all this in. Amazing stuff. So go right ahead. You said you got some more stuff for us.
Yeah, just talking about from there, the plants have always been here, and how we give the plants, CO2. They give us oxygen, and they talk about talking to your plants. But I think back in the day, because now we live in the concrete jungle, so we're cut off from nature. We're not, close to nature. But back then, like the ancients, they were, surrounded by nature. So they were like communicating with these spirits of plants and animals. And they made a partnership with them. And I think that's where we have to go, is we have to create a partnership with these plants. Just like you have a spirit animal, you could have your own plant. It's like your plant, like guide, I guess. So everyone has their own favorite plant. And all these plants that you treat, if they treat it like medicine. And it talks about how, they could talk to the plant spirits. So the plant spirits, they call it the diva. And it's hard to explain it, but I don't think like blades of grass. Grass is one spirit. Like, it's not a soul. Like, I have a soul, you have your soul. It's not every blade of grass has its own soul. It's one, just the grass is its own spirit. So the shamans, go ahead.
Just like a big network. It's a huge network, and it's all not the same, but it's part of the same. But go ahead. Sorry, you said the shaman.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like that. But there's different kinds of grass, right? There's like different species of grass. So, but it's all the same spirit, grass. Not every blade of grass has its own spirit, like kind of like we do. But the shamans would figure this out, and they would talk to the plant spirits. And that's how come they were using the medicine and they find these things, because they wouldn't do like trial and error like we do now. they wouldn't, if you were sick and you went to a shaman for healing, they wouldn't say, oh, this could be a good tea, or it could be poison. I don't know. They wouldn't, you wouldn't go back to a healer if they accidentally gave you poison, right? So they didn't do like trial and error. They communicated with the plant spirits, and then they also watched the animals. If the animals wouldn't eat certain plants, that's how they knew not to mess with those plants. And so they were talking to them, and that's how they find, like, for example, like ayahuasca. Because ayahuasca is, from what I know, I've never done it, but it's the leaves of one plant and the roots of another plant, and they mix them together. Now, how would they have known that? Unless they had some sort of connection to the plants, and the plants told them that's what they were supposed to do with it.
That's true. Yeah, I follow you. That's a good question. I think all of this, like, and again, right, you've talked about, again, this shamanic journey, and you're speaking in terms of that tonight as well. So it's not just about like mostly you hear about, the animal guides, the spirit animal guides, or like the hawk or the rabbit or this or that or the other thing, right? But there is an other element to this that kind of gets overlooked a lot. And I think it's good to talk about it, think about it, just to consider that maybe this is really the base level of what the consciousness is. Like, let's say if you removed all the trees, like for instance, we're going to have an interesting experiment when we send people to Mars, right? They're not going to be around trees and plants and nature. So I wonder if they're going to be sort of bereft of maybe that sort of general consciousness, maybe like a grounding consciousness that we're kind of discussing tonight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I didn't think about it like that. Going to other worlds, but back to the trees. It says that like each plant, and we were talking about animals and even stone spirits they use too. But each of these spirits of the stones, the plants, the animals, they have their own song. And I think what they were saying is that that's how the plants would communicate with them, through a song. And that's true. I've experienced that. But did you talk about like how they would use the different plants as like medicines, and like how did they figure that out? In pharmacy, so the German word for witch is pharmacus, and that sounds like pharmacist. The Latin word for witch is venicifa, and that's associated to Venus, and also like poisonous plants. And so they had the plants, they would, like back then, how they say like eye of new, wing of bat in the potions, but those were like code words. They weren't really using an eye of new. Eye of new was mustard seed. A wing of bat was holly leaf. So those, when they're making the potions, they use like code words to kind of freak the people out. But then they also had, like they say, when you eat mushrooms or whatever, you're taking a trip or you're flying high. And I think back then, you didn't want to get caught doing witchcraft or you die. And so I think that they would take these plants and like flying ointments, and that's how the witches would meet up on like an astral plane, not in the physical world.
Interesting. So there is. So you think there is some connection here to not just maybe like nature spirits, but we're kind of talking in terms of consciousness of maybe plants, but also that maybe they also are able to tap into maybe as a conscious being, maybe like another realm, right? Like maybe they are, let's say when you dream and you dream of a tree, maybe that tree is dreaming of you. What do you think about that?
That's good.
Is that good? Hey, I don't know if it's good. It sounded good, but I don't know if it's good. Right? Is it? Maybe it is, right? I think that's an interesting concept anyway.
Yeah, I think we just have to experiment with it more and learn about it and respect it as a medicine. I think there's a lot more medicine in the actual spirit of the plant itself than like in pharmaceuticals. So like the pharmaceuticals are, a pill is synthetic medicine. But these plants, they say that for every sickness, there's a plant a plant to cure that sickness for man. And so I think just taking the plant isn't enough. It has the properties to give you the healing benefits. But I also think that if we were to sit down and meditate with the plants and try to like merge consciousness with this plant, like go pick your favorite plant. It doesn't matter. You can go outside, or if you have a house plant, and just sit down and meditate and try to get into a zone and just try to like merge consciousness with this plant and ask the plant questions. Ask it if it will communicate with you and see what you get. And if these plants are communicating with people like this through like the meditation, they'll teach you things about what the plant does. And you'll start to find that these plants will, if you have a problem, they will come to you and, suggest themselves as a medicine. So one of the medicines that I've worked with is called a tree called yarrow. And yarrow is a plant, it regulates your blood. So there's medicine for thinning your blood and there's medicine for thickening your blood, but there's no medicine for both. But the yarrow plant, if you do like a tea or a tincture, the yarrow plant will just regulate your blood. It knows. The spirit of the plant knows what to do to your body and regulates your blood. It's kind of a trip.
Yeah, it's trippy. I like how you're like, okay, look, if you ask the plant, sort of can communicate to the plant on a conscious level, and maybe they can help you, like aloe, right? You can put on a burn, and it's got the healing properties, things like this. But it also makes me wonder about like the consciousness of plants itself and nature spirits in terms of, well, let's say, what about the bushes that have the poisonous berries? You know what I mean? I wonder if it's like a little devil in you know what I mean? Sort of in that species of bush that's like, hey, look, these delicious red berries, come take a bite. You know what I mean? I wonder, man, if we're talking about consciousness and plants and maybe that there's something more to it than we can consider. Yeah. Crazy stuff, my man. I love it. I love the way these conversations go, because you never know where they're gonna head when you start thinking in terms of this nature, spirits, and plants and whatnot. Amazing stuff. What else you got for us? Matt here, a good friend of mine in California. We're talking about the idea of consciousness of plants and maybe communing with nature. Go right ahead, sir.
And that's funny how you say, like, I was saying that too, is like, the first person that ate a strawberry, like, don't strawberries they look evil, right? Yeah,
they totally look evil. They look like you shouldn't be eating them.
But they're so good.
yeah, they're so good.
Like, I talked about this in chat. The first person to eat an artichoke, like, how did they figure that out? Yeah, you eat, how they just scrape your teeth on it. How did they know? Yeah, right. Because it does look like an alien thing that's probably going to kill you if you eat it, right? Like that was a brave MFer that was able to bite into that sucker the first time. And again, like we've talked about this before on this show too. It's like we got to give credit to those brave dudes and women way back in the day that were like, hey, let's take a bite out of this and see what happens. Yeah. So the first people that ate mushrooms were probably either having a really good time or telling them not to eat, don't eat those. The first person to eat a magic mushroom.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's the weirdness. Okay, so let's reframe it real quick and say, okay, if plants are conscious and they have like a conscious manifestation of, some plants can heal us and some plants can kill us, right? With like if we eat it or whatever. Then don't we have this weird juxtaposition of sort of the will of nature, sort of doing its thing, and maybe it's not inadvertent, maybe it's actual, like like Austin said when he called in earlier, like the eternal battle of good and evil. And there's some plants that like create healing things in food, and some plants that are like, hey, come eat the shiny berries and wink, wink, we'll put you to an early grave. I don't know. That's
it's the 5-star plants. So all the 5-star plants, you probably want to stay away from those. But the witches, the shamans, they knew they were medicine, but they knew how to how you say it. like just a little bit. So like, not if you take too much, you're gonna, if you eat too many mushrooms, you're gonna die. It's not like marijuana or anything like that where you'll wake up tomorrow. If you eat too much, there's like the mandrake, datura, I forget all of them, nightshade, deadly nightshade. Those plants, if you take too much, you can die. You can overdose and die. So they were like experimenting with it in small doses just to fly, but not die.
Yeah, and I think I think it's as always, it's complicated, isn't it? It's like, because
Sorry.
it's not. No, it's okay. That's why we talk about these things. Again, it's a long form talk show. We're supposed to be able to talk about these things and kind of go in weird places that we don't expect, right? But then we're talking not just in terms of maybe these plants being maybe sort of that eternal battle of good and evil, but then also we're talking about dosage, right? I mean, you like Jennifer was saying a little bit earlier too, like if you take a little too much of this, it's not so good for you. You're not going to take 700 aspirins, so why would you eat 500 pine cones or whatever? You know what I mean? Like you just wouldn't.
Everything in moderation.
Exactly. So
that's my disclaimer. They say it like you can always eat too much, but you can't eat too less. So the way the best way to do it is just to eat a little bit, wait. Don't just eat, don't just jump into something like that if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and your body will tell you. Your body will instantly tell you. Be like, "What are you doing? Hey, stop! What are you doing? Yeah, come on, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me." Yeah. I don't know, wild stuff.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. Oh, and also, by the way, so we are talking a little bit about, the whole conversation tonight is this idea of the consciousness of plants, right? Sort of talking about them in terms of maybe a primal subconscious, a primal consciousness even, that predates mankind, that predates humans, even predates all evolution on the planet, because it kind of started this whole ecosystem with plants as, algae and all the rest of that the microorganisms ate, and then, they grew and they're bigger and bigger, and now here I am, this boorish dude on the internet with a microphone talking about dumb stuff by dark of night, right? This is what we became. But sometimes I'm real proud of what we do here, but other times, I'm just some knucklehead on the internet with a microphone. So I don't know. Like, where does this go? Where does this lead? Do you think that there's value in this sort of communing with nature, this consciousness of the plant world? And where do we go from here, Matt? What else you got for us, my friend?
Yes, I believe in it because I've had experience, but like I said, if you want to experience it, one of the ones I think too for healing is we make teas. If you guys drink tea, you ever notice how there's like so many different kinds of teas out now that like you go down the tea aisle and it's like one for sleep, one for digestion, all the different teas. Yeah. And also I'm talking about what is it called? These are called the Bach, Dr. Edward Bach. They're like flower essences. Have you heard of these?
Elaborate, maybe?
Yeah, it's like just a little piece of the flower in water, and you can get it at the stores, and you drink this water. It's water with pretty much just like you would do with a crystal, or just like you would do, you put a little piece of tincture, I guess it's called, in there, and those things have healing, abilities too. And a lot of New Age people are finding out that herbal remedies, we call it New Age, right? But a lot of these, a lot of people are getting away from the pharmaceutical drugs and finding natural ways of healing. And I think we need to go back to that.
Yeah, of course. It's hard to argue with nature, isn't it? Like, hey, let's get back to where we started. Like we were talking about like a little bit earlier too, in terms of GMOs and things like this. Like, aren't we sort of bastardizing this nature? And we're like, hey, it's fine. Go ahead and eat this. It's fine. It's like that bush with the poisonous berries. It's like, yeah, you go ahead and eat this. It's fine. It's good. This is good. Trust me. This is food. It's not food-ish. This is food. Go right ahead. Delicious. I don't know.
I think the ancients knew, and so we need to follow like that and use it as medicine. instead of pharmaceutical drugs. That's where I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, definitely. Like the old what's the saying? There's so many sayings where they describe this in terms of, treatments and it's not about treatments. It's about maintenance. Things like this, like sort of encapsulating that idea with the food, just like food. Shout out to Ryan Gable. He's out there listening. He wrote a book called Food Philosophy. Like there's a whole thing where it's like, hey, like if you just pay attention, your body tells you the things you need. Like you get that feeling when you're thirsty. Why? Because your body's like, bro, I'm thirsty. Hey, I'm walking here. I'm thirsty. Come on. Like your body tells you, like if you listen, like if you pay attention, you know what you need. It's just, it's not voodoo. It's just not voodoo. Matt, you're the best. What else you got for us, my friend?
Oh, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go.
You're the best.
Good show tonight.
Appreciate it, man. Matt in California, always a pleasure. Tell Lacey I said hi. We'll talk to you soon, bro.
Good night.
You too. All right, so we're still talking about this idea of plants as consciousness. And not only that, so as this is Troubled Minds, of course, I'm your host, Michael Strange. And so not only in terms of just conscious plants, what about this idea that maybe sort of on a cosmic level, plants were the original consciousness in terms of, they really, for the ecosystem to develop on Earth, we really had to have sort of the soft landing pad of plants. They had to predate all the rest of us, all the rest of the mammals and vertebrates, all the things, right? You had the fish, the lions, the tigers, and bears, oh my, right? They had to literally predate all of that, or else there's nothing for those things to eat and evolve and all the rest of that thing, as far as that stuff goes, okay? As far as that stuff goes. And again, as far as you want to believe that. But again, so the question becomes, if you want to take a little more woo-woo in terms of if plants somehow, some way are being alive, have this maybe shared consciousness, were they the original consciousness on planet Earth? And maybe somehow we're sort of a manifestation of where they wanted us to go, evolutionary speaking, right? And I would wonder if you were able to communicate with a forest somewhere in the Ukraine right now, what that forest would be telling you, right? Probably be cursing us out something fierce. If you want to be part of this conversation, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We're still in the fringe. We're going to go for another 11 minutes or so, and then we got Ryan Gable, the Secret Teachings, coming up right after. Let's go to Big Y in Hawaii. What's up, my man? Welcome to Troubled Minds. Go right ahead.
Hey, what's up, brother? How goes it?
Hey, doing my thing, man. Crazy stuff on a Tuesday night. Why not? What do you think about this consciousness of plants?
Why not, right? Well, I definitely will say that I believe in the consciousness of plants to that level, for sure. I definitely think that it's not only a possibility, but a probability. I watched a documentary one time that talked about how fungi acts as a optic, basically fiber optics for plants around it, and trees and shrubbery, if you will, use it to communicate with one another for any certain thing. I wish I could remember the documentary now. I know it was on Gaia. I will say that.
Okay. All right. So I think we're probably all. I haven't heard anybody tonight say, "Well, no, Mike, I don't think plants are conscious." But it is It is interesting that. Well, I don't mean it like that. I'm not like putting you down that way. Don't take it wrong.
No. Go ahead. My bad. I didn't take it offensively. I was just there was more to it.
Okay, go ahead.
A couple thoughts to it.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
So I kind of want to put like a little thought in your head. So like I took classes in automotive a little bit, and the electric class and all that, and they talk about the circuit. And the circuit won't run properly until the ground wire is connected. You know what I mean? Like the entire circuit won't run. The electric won't run through the circuit until it's connected fully, and that includes the ground wire. If you think about it, talking about grounding for humans is taking off your shoes and just connecting with the earth or even concrete, what once was Earth, purely. But that senses, that can like not only take away the positive ions that we receive from all the electrical crap that's around us, and introduce negative ions and help us like recharge our circuits. I think that's kind of right along the lines of this, and how everything is electricity, the plasma, frequencies, even with the binaural beats, you can listen to something and it can induce certain, close to at least the same type of feelings we get if you were to actually have the real, say, pharmaceutical or any other type of drug. You know what I mean? Not to the same degree. Depends on how open your mind is, how open you're able to make your pineal gland to these things. You know what I mean? But the idea even of what's it called? The effect when you take a pill, like it's a sugar pill, but you believe it's the placebo effect. You know, even to that extent, I think that's all connected within these frequencies and these vibrations in the electrical plasma world that is kind of being proven is around us. You know what I mean? I think that's the way it's connected more than we can really even explain fully yet.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's why we just need to be aware. Again, the thing that really grinds my gears about humans is just the hubris. You know, the fact that we want to play God with so many things, but then so many things that are like obviously, if you just like stop and like kind of in contemplation in a quiet moment, like sort of the idea of God's all around us, like all of this nature stuff, like it's special. It's incredibly special, and I think that just as people we're so boorish. We're so just gross. I mean, it's just gross, right? I mean, like think about what's right? What's the line from the song, right? It's like you pave paradise to put up a parking lot, and that's literally where we're at. It's getting worse and worse. And then so let's go to some current events for just a second. Be like, all right, so they paved paradise, they put up a parking lot, and then they leveled the parking lot with mortars. Nice job, humans. Nice job, right? Like it's just. Like the more you think about it, the more, like I always say, we just live in the upside down. Amazing stuff, my friend. What else you got? Go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say, too, a big part of this, isn't just what the plant can do for you. A lot of it is intent, too. And if we're talking about even from the human level to the molecular level, scientists are starting to, like, have the idea that, if even a cell has consciousness, it can't be in one particular area. It has to be in all the areas of the cell. So if that's the case, then, not only do we have our own consciousness that we're dealing with, but each, of our own cells all like working together in one, teamwork makes the dream work kind of idea. And then every other living thing is doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? And we're all fighting at this different point of perception for this consumption of life. It goes back to the double slit theory. Like, if you think about it, the Vikings used mushrooms to induce a berserker state, but they still were incarnate, trying to make that animal spirit, wolf or bear, that natural spirit come forth and go to a more prime evil state. Even in that sense, it's all about intent. So I think with these different types of plants, like you guys, the last caller was talking as well, like, it's quality, not quantity. Balance is where it's at. Poppy was used for healing through most of the medieval ages. Now it's used to make heron. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about intent too, and what we, like you said, the bastardization of all these vegetables as well as plant life and herbs that we use. And hey, cut down the weeds in your yard, even though that dandelion can cure the Alzheimer's your granddad has.
Yeah,
you know exactly. So it's all like a ploy and a lie to get us to just believe whatever the yams want us to believe, and that which is this concrete jungle is better than the natural world that was given to us in the first place.
Yeah, no, exactly. And here we are again, just like, I don't know. I don't want to call us brainless because, we're here trying to not be brainless. It's just, some things are just so obvious that, we miss it. It's like, hey, let's get back to the basics and just like take care of the obvious stuff and just not, it doesn't have to be so complicated, for crying out loud, like have reverence for nature, like, don't replace your ego for God. It's simple. Like, it's simple. Like I make the jokes about my ego and stuff. I mean, we all have one, right? But for crying out loud, if you can't control it, if you can't like not become a monster, I don't know. Maybe you're not human at all. Maybe you actually are the monster, right? Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. We got about 2 minutes left, so let's get you winding down, my friend.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys for let's call in every day. I appreciate you keeping this place, positive, a good place for flight and conversation. Like I said before, it's good stuff. Every day it's good stuff.
I appreciate it. Like I said, it's only me until everybody chimes in, and then suddenly it takes on a life of its own, and it becomes a beautiful thing, right? That whole symbiosis we've been talking about, sort of with nature, sort of like teamwork, dreamwork, like you just said. And like I always say, right? I'm me, you're you, but together we're us, and that's a very special thing. I appreciate you listening. Thanks for tell the Hawaiian Islands from Las Vegas hello, my friend. Always a pleasure, Big Y. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening, bro.
Always, brother. Shoot some mahalo from the islands, my guy.
Sounds good. Aloha, my friend. Have a great night. Thanks for calling.
Aloha.
I hope that means something good. I've heard it in terms of something good. What's aloha mean? No, he hung up on me. It's hello or love or both or something. I don't know. Great stuff. All right. So as we finish, that's what a knucklehead I am. I don't know a damn thing, but that's okay, right? So as long as I think that's part of knowledge, right? Like what did Socrates say? Like the only thing I ever know is that I don't know a damn thing, right? That's a bad paraphrase. That's a Michael Strange-ism paraphrase, which is just a bastardization of the thought and the idea. And it's, hey, come on, like just because we know some things doesn't mean we know all the things. And that's what this is about. It's about getting together, teaching each other some things we may not have heard or known, and just really expanding the ideas of thought and consciousness to ourselves, and trying to respect not just us, not just the group, not just the family, not just, but what about everything else? Don't forget the trees and the plants and nature and the nature spirits, and don't forget a moment of quiet is a moment of silence, is a moment of prayer, and it all comes together if you're willing to listen. And there we go. So as we finish, you guys know where we ended up the third hour on Fringe here, but so the bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we've got tomorrow. And of course, you know how this works as well. If you're, again, listening to us on Fringe, stay tuned for The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Like I said, he's written some books, Food Philosophy, Occult Arcana, and some other stuff. Check that out if you guys don't know what's up with that. Do stay tuned for him, a brilliant dude, good friend of mine. And more. As we go, it goes a little something like this. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thanks for engaging your troubled minds in a conversation. Again, drinking the maybe juice. Just because we talk about these things doesn't mean we have to consider these things as true. It's up to you. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. And thank you so much for being part of this. Like I said, you guys make it very easy to come back day after day, night after night, because you're all so kind and gracious. And, there we go. So let's get the hell out of here. It goes exactly like this. We're out of here. Ryan Gable coming up. Arr. I was actually out of time. I wasn't watching the clock. I was like, it goes exactly like this, and I didn't get to do it. But it goes exactly like this. We'll be back tomorrow, guys. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific. More stuff. You're all invited to be on the show as a co-host. You know what to do. Hit me up on Discord. Send me an email at troublemindsradio@gmail. And let's do it. Let's talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. As you know, non-linear, open-ended. We'll take these conversations wherever the fuck we need to take them. And as we finish, it goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. Oh, damn it. Wait. Wait. No, we're not done yet. We got Jay. We're gonna actually kill this. We're killing. I didn't stop anything. You got the outro before the outro. Jay in New York. Let's go, brother. What's your take on this? Nobody tells us when to stop. We're grown ass people. I was just
going to read it. I was ready and everything.
Okay, I didn't see there. My bad. I got a little distracted because of the they put me back on the Fringe. So my mind was in a different place for a moment there. But I'm glad you said something, and I didn't stop the stream. So there, let's keep on trucking, my friend. Jay in New York? What's happening?
Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I feel good. Everything's good, man. I don't have any complaints. It's the almost shorts weather here. I'm sorry to brag. How are you, my friend? I hope everything's well with you.
3 to 5 for work in the morning.
Okay. Is that good?
Chilly.
It's chilly. Okay.
3 to 5 inches of snow. It's chilly.
Oh, all right. A little chilly. All right.
What an awesome what an awesome show. I woke up out of a dream to come and talk to you guys. It was really odd. And that whole thing with the Sate Numa is the one that comes to me. It's a Japanese philosophy. It's like communing one with nature. It's that we have to live together with nature, because without nature, we'll die. It's just the beautiful thing of all of it. And then, I don't know, listen to all the different conversations about taking the plants for the certain ways and everything else like that. It's really interesting to let those kind of things rattle around up in there, I found out that we used to drink sassafras tea when we were backpacking because it was something better than water. But then I found out through a conversation on the Discord, it was like, hey, sassafras tea makes you hallucinate. So we were all running around in the woods. And it's like, oh, I'm a good, clean-cut, Bible-beaten kind of kid from Ohio. We don't ever do anything. Well, make yourself some sassafras tea and go camping. Sounds like a brilliant idea,
Well, like we were saying when Matt called too, it's complicated. Like Jennifer too, it's it's about dosage too. Like I'm told onions and garlic are also hallucinogens. I'm like, what? I eat the hell out of some garlic.
Damn it, I'm screwed.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I eat the hell out of some garlic, man. There's no such thing as too much garlic in my food. I'll stink for 3 days, but I will enjoy the hell out of that spaghetti or whatever the hell it is, whatever the hell you put the garlic in. I mean, I'm not scared. You know me, Jay. I'm not scared. Yeah, I mean, so, it's complicated. It's complicated. Hey, it's complicated. So what were you dreaming about? You were literally woken up out of a dream to come talk to troubled minds.
It was a nightmare. It just so happened that it kicked off at like 10:06, and I was like, "Wow, I got to get up. I can't go back to bed after that." And it's like, "Oh wow, Troubled Minds is on. Perfect. I've been missing it for so long because I've been working so much, but it was odd the way that it was, and then the fact that you're talking about plants and the farm and all that, and everything else like that. It was just really odd that the synchronicities of the whole thing is what I was getting at. Is all of it is. It just seems that we are so in tune with it that we don't even know. We spend all our time running around and working and doing all those things that make you really mad to get by and be here. We're missing the fact that we probably have an awesome relationship right behind our own eyes that is going on with us that we don't know. I mean, the whole reincarnation. What if you come back as a plant or a tree?
And you're chopped up by a tractor. Like talk about. What's with the Phoenix and Prometheus, right? The Phoenix comes and rips out his liver every day, and so he suffers every day, bleeding to death with his liver ripped out or whatever. And then 24 hours later, the Phoenix comes back and does it again, right? That would be your existence as like a farm crop. if you came back resurrected as a plant.
Well, Tam and I had that about the ants one time. You just come back as an ant. Are you an ant or the anteater? I think it's an Indian proverb that's about karma. Do you want to come back as an ant and just be busy and do your thing and pick up your grain of sand or grab your piece of food and bring it back? So the entire, I don't know what you would call that, anthill can survive? Or do you want to be the anteater that just goes around and destroys this anthills all day long? And it's kind of like the gist of it all. But I wonder if that's what it is, I mean, nature is one of those things. Like, I spent a lot of time in nature. I love camping and backpacking and climbing and all those things. But when you're out in nature, there's like a piece. Like, I'm a builder. You look at the pieces of the wood and you're like, I'm not going to use this as frame lumber. This is a beautiful piece of wood. You set it aside and you make that out of the moldings or the whatever, different in the house. Well, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a piece of furniture out of it because it's so nice.
Right.
It's just...
God bless you, man. God bless you. Absolutely. My grandfather used to tell me, I don't paint wood. He's not doing it, right? It's too beautiful, right? Like you slap a nice little stain on there or a nice clear coat, right? And you got a beautiful grain. Like, why are you going to paint over that? 100%, man.
All the stuff that leaves my workshop leaves unprimed. You want me to build it for you? I'll build it for you. It's built out of wood. It's as nice as it could possibly be. But I'm not painting it because I'm finished. I'm done. It'll last forever. I'll break it down with linseed oil and stuff like that and send it on its way. If you just leave it out laying in the yard, it'll last for years.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. So what are your thoughts on this this whole consciousness of plants? Do you think this is a real thing, or do you think Michael Strange is just off the rails again? Nothing new there anyway.
Yeah. Well, but I don't think we're off the rails. I think we don't need rails. I think that's the whole point of it, is that we're hitting a nail on the head here. We realize that, even if it's with the medicinal purposes of the recreational drugs that everyone's taking in as more and more, FDA approved, I would say. I would think that there's knowledge out there that we've been sitting on and hiding forever and ever and ever. And it might just be in our own mind, just a fear factor. I'm not going to eat that, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a consciousness in it, I look at it with, people that... A lot of plants are tubers. You don't even have to destroy the plant to get the root off of it. Bamboo is an excellent one, You can cut bamboo down all day long, and next year you come back, there's going to be more bamboo. That's the way it grows.
Yeah, or like that, what's that stuff in the South? It's called kudzu, I think. That's like that vine.
Kudzu, that's an invasive species from Vietnam.
Is it?
That they brought over? Yeah, they brought over to combat the coal mines in West Virginia and Kentucky, because that's when they came up with the bright idea. We'll just shoot it out of the mountain with water, and so then they would have unbelievable runoff with the mud and everything else like that. Well, we saw this stuff in Vietnam that grows like wildfire. Let's plant some of that there. It takes over whole mountains and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Now.
It's like so invasive. It's like climbing on top of the trees to get the sun, and it's killing the trees. Like shit.
Yeah. Entire mountains.
Yeah.
The first time I ever called you was about a place like that the Boy Scouts actually bought. And it was everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there was kudzu. You can't do anything with it. You can't burn it. You can't, nothing.
There's no stopping it. It's like the alien menace. Crazy stuff. My friend Jay, we've got a wild Rohan popped in here as well. So you want to share some love for a little bit and hang out, and then we'll get back to you and do some more J-Tro in a bit.
I can't think of a better person to talk to right now.
There you go. Always a gentleman, Jay. Appreciate it very much. Let's go to, we're here with Jay in New York, and we're still talking about this. We got some troubled minds overtime. Like I said, we're grown-ass people. Nobody tells us when to stop. If we got things to say, we'll say them. And that's the point of this. The whole third hour, kind of off the radio bit, is just to let our hair down, have a conversation, talk. If we got lots of things to say, I'll try and get to everybody that has to say something. And let's do it. Let's go to our good friend, the famous Liam Martin, the mighty Rohan. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. How are you tonight?
Hey, Mike. How you doing? You all right? Hear me okay?
Hey, okay. Looking good, feeling good. You know how it goes, man. Some days are better than others, but we'll call this day an A+. Definitely an A+. What do you think? Do you think plants are conscious? Do you think this is a bunch of bullshit?
A+ day. No, I'm on this one. I think this is, I've been thinking this kind of way for a while. But yeah, I just wanted to jump back on what Jay said with the wood and that. I used to do wood carving, make small little things, and I used to say that about wood. I never want to paint wood because it kind of like, you don't know that it's wood then. It could be a mold or something. So all that like hundreds of hours of work that you put in, it kind of gets rid of it in some way, painting it, I reckon. So yeah, so I thought I'd back him up on that one because I like wood.
Yeah. My grandfather actually had a slice of wood he got from the lumber yard, and in the grain, I shit you not, was like a near perfect like wizard, like Merlin with a hat in the grain of the frickin'. I'm not even kidding you. Like I don't know where that piece of wood went, but like holy shit, he was like he'd go show it off. He'd be like, look, this is going to be scrap. I was like, what the hell? Like you see with your own damn eyes, like, hey, nature does some amazing things, doesn't it?
You know what? You reminded me, you triggered me. This is going to sound like I was just making this up, but this is true, right? I used to do martial arts, and I was after a staff, a bow staff, 6 foot for me, for me martial arting. But I used to have to walk past these allotments and bit of fields and stuff and bit of a park to do martial arts, and I got called to by I don't know, it's odd, weird, strange paranormal experiences, but I got this urge to go and check this park out. I'd never been to it before. Saw these overgrown steps going up a hill. It was a bit intriguing. So I went and checked it out, and it led me to this old rundown open area. No one goes there, and I tripped over a 6 foot branch. It's perfect for kung fu. Right, it's a bit of a weird one. It's like it called to me or something. But I guess this branch, and it was the perfect shape of like a giraffe's head. Where the arm would be on, the branch would be attached to the tree trunk, and it was a perfect shape of like a giraffe's head. So it looked like a giraffe's really long neck. And I thought, you know what I mean? That's so, just from the side profile. And it's really strange, and you could use it as a weird kind of staff. So I thought I might take that home and try and do that burning technique where you can try and put the pattern of a giraffe on there. So I thought, yeah, that's amazing. So it was a little random segue there, Mike.
Yeah, no, you're good. That's why we do this. It's it is nice to be able to, call in and talk and not be like, oh, you got 42 seconds. Go. We got to go to a commercial. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk. Let's talk, man. Yeah. So you're spot on here. So what about the rest of this? Like, I don't know how much you caught. Again, Liam Martin here, the famous Liam Martin, Mighty Rohan. He lives in the UK, so his time is way different from ours. It's the morning for him, but we were talking about this idea of this maybe consciousness of like the plant world, and that maybe somehow, some way, it's trying to communicate with us. And in terms of that, is that psilocybin mushroom, the whole idea of the trip or the shamanic journey. Like I kind of made it like a cosmological thing from the very beginning of life on Earth, and how it started with the plants, and then the animals, and then everybody, people came from that. But then what if all this time, all this evolution, the plant world has just been trying to like manifest us? We talk about manifesting consciousness, and then somehow maybe contact us. Maybe like after all these years, like if finally, you guys are here, and then the plants want to talk to us. The consciousness of the Gaia hypothesis, the Earth being alive because of the plants, want to communicate, and we're just such assholes, we don't pay attention. Or something like that.
Yeah, we're so young. Because if you think about, if that was the case, which it seems to be, we'll get into that, but they're millions and millions and millions of years old, aren't they? Developed over time. It's some serious like evolution gone on there. So they'd be really good at it as well. Do you know what I'm saying? So perhaps we're just like really young. But I think that's totally how it is. It's like you say, you got the flora and the fauna has to come first. And part of that's job then, becomes part of the food chain. It feeds animals. Okay, so death is a thing to consider. That from a plant's perspective, death means a completely different thing than what it means to us. Because for a plant, it wants you to eat them, because that's how it propagates. You can't necessarily rely on bees to propagate every single possible seed. So a lot of the time, plants are relying on you eating it. Okay, so it's almost like they treat death differently. That's like the ultimate Spartan glory, to die in battle kind of thing. It's like that's how they're doing it. Yeah.
Valhalla is in the gut of a bird that's going to pull you out 6 miles down the road.
That's right.
And grow you another tree.
That's right. As you go down, like to glory, you know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, maybe.
So you think about that. So you think about what happens. And you mentioned mushrooms. Well, if you start looking for this, how it works, right? The theory of the stoned ape. Yeah, Terence McKenna. As your environment begins to change, your jungles start to recede. You get more and more savannas and wetlands. So you got to start searching for more food, and you're going to try little bits of. You're going to try everything. You're looking for food. Yeah. So that's where you start getting into tracking animals and hunting animals, hunter-gathering. Do you know what I'm saying? But along the way, you're going to get ungulate animals with like double-stomached animals like cows and stuff that have got a digestive system that needs to digest more roughage. As a result of having to digest more roughage, you've got a different digestive type system, which makes a good environment for mushrooms to grow in the dun. So some of these animals that you're going to come across as hunter-gatherers are going to have you're going to follow the cow dung or follow the droppings of the animal you're hunting, and that particular dung for some of these animals you're going to hunt is going to be great for mushrooms. So as you're looking for new food sources and hunting things, you have to come across psilocybin mushrooms, and some of them are as big as plates, so you can't miss them. So definitely people's going to eat them. And the hunter-gatherers that used to eat psilocybin mushrooms in small doses would have had increased visual acuity and therefore would have been better hunters. So it stands to reason why our consciousness would have opened up because of plants. You know what I'm saying? Then in medium doses, you're more aroused sexually, so you're going to start outbreeding people that don't use these things. So then it will become prevalent, and then in higher doses, you're lying on the ground, tripping your balls off, aren't you? Sort of thing. You know, it's expanding your consciousness, isn't it?
You're actually tripping your balls off, talking to the trees. You're communicating with the trees. It's all full circle. Full circle. Crazy stuff.
But think about how crazy a mushroom's so non-threatening as well, and in its death, in its act of dying, it gets to hijack your nervous system. And it's been around for millions and millions of years, and it starts telling you stuff. You know, like we are from Sector 49B, you know, been denizens of space for 42, you know, whatever, and it shows you alien stuff, doesn't it? You know, so it's almost like it's storing the memory and then telling you about it in its act of death.
Yeah, exactly. Wacky stuff, and I think that's the beauty of just doing it in this format. We just get so many amazing takes. Jay, anything for him? We cut you off to go to Rohan. Anything for Rohan?
No, really. I'm shooting right down the same alley that Rohan is. Is that, you know, those things have been around millions and millions of years, and I like that philosophy as the forest recedes and stuff like that. The guys that were eating the vegetables and stuff like that started getting hungry, so they started looking for meat, so they followed the poo. You know, all the mushrooms started eating them. You know, hungry.
tripping your balls off, talking to the trees. Hey, it's
going and looking for a deer to shoot or something like that because you're starving. You know.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is maybe it gave them, maybe in doing that and being in the moment, they're not distracted with Netflix and, you know, getting notifications, are they? So you're going to really be present, hunting, worrying about dangers. And so maybe you're already kind of hearing nature anyway, like some of that green language stuff, it occurs to me. And maybe in eating these things, it's giving you hints on some of the medicinal stuff, like we hear with the ayahuasca ceremony. You know, they'll tell you what plants are good for.
Well, I mean, even like when you're out hiking and stuff like that, you can tell whether or not you don't want to drink the water out of a stagnant pond. You want to drink the water that's flowing off of the moss. You know, your body knows that. You know, you can smell it in the water. You can smell that the water's cleaner. You know, as little simple things that we've forgotten. You know it. Everyone knows it. You can tell when you walk into a waterfall with springs shooting out of the sandstones and everything else like that. It has an aroma and a feeling that purity, this is a great place to get water, you look at that, and then here's me bringing it back to the water again, but it's always comes down to the water. It's like, I don't really know what I'm trying to get out of this here is that we know these things, they're in us. We know it when we go for a walk, even if it's just in a park, that, with the manicured, greenery and all that. You can feel it, you can smell it. Like if you go into a conservatory or a greenhouse, it has a feel about it, and being grounded, your feet in the dirt, and you're there with all of that. You're part of that energy. It's all a really huge energy that I think that, I don't know, it's all like, we're almost the same collective. As human beings, I really think that, I'll come out and say it. We have that same grounding amongst each other, but through all of the things that we do for jobs and all that other stuff, that we're constantly taking ourselves away from that.
Yeah, and then back to that battle of good and evil. It seems like it's by design, right? Interestingly enough, back to the Tolkien nerd, right? J.R.R. Tolkien. He wrote about, the orcs and industry and tearing down the forests and creating weapons of war and machinery and catapults and things like this, right? Like he was talking about it in archaic terms, but he witnessed it as part of like World War I, World War II, right? So basically sort of Lord of the Rings in many ways, but not the only way, because it's such a unbelievable depth of story and just amazing metaphor and allegory and all this stuff, right? But in one sense, it's like a bastardization of nature, and like, hey, we don't need to pave paradise to put up that parking lot to then shell with fucking mortars. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're doing, and like,
but when we do shell it with mortars, that's going to give nature a place to put in its foothold again.
You're right. You're totally right. It starts over, doesn't it? Then we World War III it, and then like Einstein said, World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. There it is. Yeah, right. Crazy
absolutely
shit. Crazy shit. What else you got, Rohan?
I think you've hit on a good point there. That you said something along the lines of it seems to be part of the script, part of the deal, that there's this dark and light sort of thing, and I think that's quite a profound thing to think about, because it's true that you must have in life this thing called contrast, and so you need things that we'll just call bad things, or whatever bad things are to you. You need things that you don't want to happen in order to know what you don't want. So then it was revealed what you don't want, so you can then know what you do want. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Ain't no sunshine without the rain.
Yes. Ain't no sunshine when we... I don't know how it goes. I don't know. I think that this is why we do this. I just don't know. I don't know. Like, I wish I had the answers, but doesn't it feel like after we talk about this stuff, like, even if it's fractionally, marginally, in tiny spaces, like we're a little bit closer each day? It just feels that way to me. Just, again, with so many amazing people kind of chipping in, contributing, talking about things you never thought of, that literally, like, you're sort of entrenched in an idea, or not really an ideal per se, but, like you're kind of like, hey, I'm trying to be the best human being I can be. And then you hear some things and you're like, okay, well, I got some work to do yet. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's good. This is a good thing. I'm not complaining one bit. I'm very grateful for all of you guys.
There's a lot of other people out there trying to be good human beings too. Slowly but surely, we're gaining mass. A root system of the psilocybin mushrooms.
I think we're culminating at the minute at this point in history as well, and I think. Not just because I'm on this show and connected with this group, but I think these kinds of endeavors and having these conversations in whatever little pact you're in, I think there's going to be like hundreds of us groups out there, thousands all around the world, and I think we're kind of we're kind of flogging the horse in a way. We're beating the zeitgeist, all of us, all over the world, in our own little communities, eking out what we want. Do you know what I'm saying? We've had a couple of years of the world's been upside down and left right. Do you know what I'm saying? We all know what's, right and wrong, good and bad in ourselves and in our own nature. People are basically good. And I think what's happening is at this point in history, we're just hashing out what it is we want, because we've been wholly dissatisfied last few decades, haven't we? Do you know what I'm saying? And I think this is an important part of the conversation. I think that's sort of echoing what you were just saying there, Mike. We're getting out of this mess. We're sorting out the wheat from the chaff. We're doing it ourselves, on the grassroots level, which is how it always seems to work.
Yeah, what's back to the Margaret Mead quote, right? For Daryl. I'll pull that up in a sec. We'll do that as part of the outro. I mean, it is. It's a committed group of citizens. That's what it comes down to. And again, not to preach either. Not like I'm the pinnacle of anything. I'm just again, and I mean it. I'm just some asshole on the internet with a microphone. That's it. Right, but look what happens. Time and pressure, right? A message. You start to attract these amazing people. Like I don't know, no fault of my own for sure. But here we are, right? Here we are. So I can't complain. I'm like I said, I always feel blessed to just to have these conversations with amazing folks. Go ahead. What else you guys got?
You just reminded me of that scene in Bruce Willis in one of his Die Hard films, when he's basically saying that. He says, I don't want to be, I'm not a hero. He says, I'd be at home. I'd be on the way to the airport now if there was anyone else here to do it. I'm just the guy that's there. Do you know what I'm saying?
I am, though.
That's just how it goes.
I am, though.
Yeah, it's just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
No, it's the right place at the wrong time. You are the right person at the wrong place at the right time. You're the person for that job. That's why we live as long as we do. Or you survived a car accident when you were a kid and stuff like that, because there was that one thing that you have to do later.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about that too, in terms of, like you say, the right person at the right time, or even the wrong time. I'll tell you, like 10 years ago, I was a different dude. I was not the same guy, right? I was obtuse like many others. I was just, not awake. And I'm not saying like I'm the pinnacle of awake or anything. I'm just saying like I'm trying to open my eyes to a lot of things, not just, like it's easy to get bogged down in the propaganda and just the narcissism and the materialistic shit. It's easy. It's so easy, right? But what do they say, right? Like the dark side is that, Yoda said, it's the quicker, easier, more seductive. It is. It's completely true. And again, and what do they say about the river? Back to the rivers again. Shout out to Rivers if you're out there listening. The same person walking in the same river two different times, it's not the same person, it's not the same river. Everything's always changing. And so in this moment, I'm a better person than I was 10 years ago, for sure. Not that I was like, burning shit down and, causing crimes and, all kind of shit like that. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I just wasn't aware of like the greater impact of things you could have with little moments, little moments like this, little moments just respecting people. You know what I mean? It's like, not that I was ever really disrespectful. I think you could go back 20 years, 30 years and people would tell you, no, Mike's never been like that. But still, there's like some level of just stupidity we kind of have built into ourselves that we have to...
We were young.
Yeah, we were young and stupid.
You had to grow up and make mistakes and learn.
I think that's part of that contrast thing I was mentioning earlier as well. You've got to crawl out on a limb, go outside of your box, and see what makes you a douche. And then, then you can gauge your zone, can't you? You know what I mean? You've got to test your space out.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't like a psychobabble, like, celebrate Mike's change bullshit. So don't take it like that. I'm just saying, like, things change, people change, times change. And so what Jay said there kind of reminded me that, hey, like maybe 10 years ago it was the right time and I was the wrong guy. You know what I mean? So who fucking knows, man? Like we aren't here to make those decisions, are we? We're just here to do the best.
You could have been the right guy at that time, though. I mean, maybe that Tom needed somebody to be the douche. Just like somebody needs to be the douche with the freaking plumber on the $2 million house that we're building right now. Dude, you're an asshole. You're an absolute asshole. Everybody hates you. Every time you show up, you ruin everybody's day. Why do you even come here? You know, I mean, I'm sorry. That was venting, and that's bad.
You're allowed. It's fine. We're fine.
We've all been there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We've been at both ends of that, haven't we?
That's the sound of someone who's angry. I apologize.
That's a pretty weak angry. You can do better than that.
I try not to do that.
Exactly.
I actually put forth more effort into not being angry than I do into being happy, and I'm always happy.
There you go.
So.
There you go. All right, let's wind it down, gentlemen. We got 30 minutes of overtime here. Thanks, Rohan, for popping in and saying hi. It's been a little while. Always a pleasure, my friend. You're definitely the best. Rohan here has a podcast. It's called Exiled Minds Podcast, EMP. I like to call it an EMP for your brain. Check it out. Links in the description. I'll follow all the folks down below. Lots of links down below. Lots of friends of this show. Lots of amazing people that call in and contribute all the time. They've got YouTube channels and podcasts and things like this. Go check it out. Robert's got a book. Tam Bam's got an Instagram. Go check it out. Lots of amazing folks. Please click the links. Go share. Do all the things. Let's do it. Let's wrap it up. Final, let's say 90 seconds, Rohan, and then we'll go to Jay for the J-Tro.
Yeah, that was it's a cool topic, this one, I'd say. I think it's syncing up with nature. You can't really go wrong with that, can you? So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Mike. Thanks for that little outro there. Appreciate that, and it's great to speak to you guys. I've started doing this more often, trying to do the really early mornings. So instead of being up super late, so yeah, might be able to be around a bit more soon. Cheers, Mike.
Right on. You're always welcome. You know where to find us. You know what time. You know where to be. You know where to be. Appreciate it very much. All right, Jay with the J-Tro. Before you do it, let me find that Margaret Mead quote for Daryl. This is for Daryl, and then we'll do the J-Tro. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Jay, how you feeling, brother? I'm
feeling fantastic. I'm so glad that I woke up today to catch this show. It seemed like it was called, you know. It was summons, kind of like when we mention Axel, he just like shows up.
He just shows up. Axel, see, we're talking about Axel now. We're going to summon him. He's going to show up in Discord. He'll be there in a second.
You have to say Xander 3 times, don't you?
Yeah, that's his dog.
Xander.
Yeah, maybe.
Beetlejuice for James.
Exactly. Click your heels together 3 times. All right. So I'm not gonna rush you and play the outro. Your final thoughts, my friend, and then we'll do. Wait for the beat to drop. Go ahead. What's your final thoughts on this idea tonight? Consciousness of plants, maybe. Are they trying to communicate with us? How do we, this communing with nature? Whatever. Go right ahead, sir. Whatever's on your mind.
Just take your time. When you have your coffee in the morning, don't play with your phone. Watch the birds. You know, the squirrels run around in the yard. I don't know. I can't hear the bass drop.
I haven't started it yet.
Oh, that's probably why I can't hear it.
That's why you can't hear it. So not only that, I just wanted to give you some time to finish your thought and tell everybody what's on your mind.
Just, I don't know. A lot of stuff is on my mind. That's why I love having the opportunity to come here and listen to all of the different conversations that go on, because it gives your mind an opportunity to wander, and I think all that wander are not lost. It's you have to think about all kinds of different things from different perspectives, and that's the brilliant thing that you've done here. You wanted to jump into changing yourself and thinking away. Wow, you did it with both feet right in the water off a 50-foot cliff, Mike. You know, you're going for everything you got, you know, all different kinds of conversations, and bringing out people that have excellent ideas on all of it, you know, no matter how simple or complex it is. It just I'm thankful. I would have to say that the way that I feel about all things right now, I'm very thankful that I have the things that I have and the health that I have and all that.
Amen.
We should find the things to be thankful for every day.
Amen. Amen to that. 100%. And this is part of living in the upside down, like I say, right? We live in this society where we go 365 fucking days of the year and we have one day, right? All the other days for all the other bullshit you want to say, and I say bullshit respectfully, but we have one fucking day where we're like, oh, let's be thankful for the things we have. That's living in the upside down. I'll tell you what, 100% that's living in the damn upside down. And I reject it entirely. And let me tell you something real quick, and then we'll go to the J-Tro here. Just because conventions are the way they are, right? Just because social pressure is the way it is, just because things seem upside down does not mean you have to eat that hook, line, and sinker. We can reject it outright and say, no, I am not being a part of this. I am disengaging from this bullshit, and I will not play these games. I don't do drama. If you come into this chat, if you call and you want to be, I will ban you faster than you can say, what the fuck just happened? And I don't play. Literally, like I said before, just as a aside, I know the individual's still not here, but when people come in here, they get trimmed. It's like, get out. Like, just get the fuck out. We've got important things to talk about. We're respecting each other, and you're a moron. Come back when you're not a moron. There you go. Simple as that. No time for that. No time. No time for that shit. Let's do it, Jay. I'm going to smash the button. Let's wait for the bass to drop. I'm sure you got a fantastic J-Tro for us. Let's roll it. Let's roll it. As we finish, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, reptilians, androids, and everybody else, I bring you the J-Tro.
Things are not getting worse. They're getting uncovered. We must hold on to each other tight and continue to pull back the veil.
Yes, sir. Who was that? Who said that?
Stupid Mimi on the Facebook that popped up a couple of days ago.
some stupid meme on Facebook. Look, and this.
I'm so old, I still call it a Mimi.
No, it's a meme. Yeah, it's a meme. It's a meme.
I know it is.
I know you know.
Okay, Mimi though.
This is the thing.
Yeah, I do.
And this is the thing. Facebook fucking sucks, but we're old enough and we're wise enough to find value where value is had. Jay, thank you very much. Rohan, thank you very much. Daryl, thank you very much. Everybody else out there, thanks so much for bailing me out tonight. I had an idea, and it just took me a while to get there. And as always, you guys just show up and bail my ass out night after night after night, and I can't thank you enough. As we finish, it goes like this. We've done this 3 times tonight. Fringe ending 1, Fringe ending 2. Overtime, Troubled Minds. The bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we've got tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be talking about all kinds of whack shit. That's what we always do. And, well, we'll be taking your calls. I'm me, you're you, together we're us. So let's do it. Let's get the hell out of here. It goes exactly like this. You want to do it, Jay? How are the words? What's that?
The God willing.
God willing. God willing, we've got tomorrow. And it goes exactly also like this. Wait, did I say it? The bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we've got tomorrow. And it goes like this. That was for Jay. This one's for James. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.
What chihuahuas, right? Ow.
Let her rip. It's about 45 seconds left if you guys want to freak out.
Ow. And wet chihuahuas, I'm telling you. Right out of the bath.
What the hell's going on over there? What the hell's going on over here? All right. So if you guys haven't joined the Discord, please do. Troubleminds.org. Click the Discord link. Come say hi. Come meet all these fine folks. Most of these folks are active on Discord. And come say hi. They're as fantastic as they seem. There we go. We're out of here. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific. Spread the word. More Troubled Minds tomorrow night. Wet Chihuahuas unite.
Awoo!
That's where we drop the falsetto. You go. All right, we're out.
Probably the key.